Chapter 905. A new week began when she was woken up from her bed by her father. Yang Yi did not disappoint Shishi. On Monday morning, he appeared by her bedside and intimately pinched the nose of the little girl who was acting coquettishly and refused to get up. Only then did Shishi giggle, turn over, and climb out of bed. The morning was happy. When Shishi arrived at school, she was still full of positive energy. She hummed a song and tidied up her textbooks on her desk. Today Lu Xiaoyu also came early. She almost followed behind Shishi. Seeing that her little friend was back to her usual lively self, she was also very happy. The tear-stained Shishi was pitiful, but in the end, it was more comfortable to get along with a sunny and smiling little girl. Lu Xiaoyu took the book from Sister Xiaowei that Shishi gave her. However, she was not that interested in books. She stuffed it into the drawer and chatted with Shishi about the interesting things that happened during the weekend. Your father came back on Saturday? Lu Xiaoyu asked in surprise. Yes. When I woke up in the morning, I saw my papa making breakfast for me. Shishi's little face was brimming with a happy smile. Then did you tell your father that you caught a cold? Lu Xiaoyu asked with her eyes shining. Lu Xiaoyu still remembered the things that they discussed last week. Lan Xian's suggestion really subverted her way of thinking. No. My papa came back by himself. Shishi shook her head and said, I don't want to lie to papa and say that I caught a cold. Okay then. Lu Xiaoyu actually felt a little disappointed and regretful. Speaking of this, Shishi suddenly remembered what her father said to her on Saturday. She happily said to Lu Xiaoyu, Little you, or let me tell you, my papa said that this week, you can come to our house to play. Really? Lu Xiaoyu asked in surprise. That's right. I also want to invite Sister Xiaowei and the others, Shishi said as she tapped her fingers. Great. We can go to Shishi's house to play again. Lu Xiaoyu happily danced in her seat. On Wednesday night, Guozi went home. It was mainly because his brother, who was an official in the countryside, rarely came back to the city for business. Guo Zhengyan, who was Guozi's father, had no other plans, so the family gathered together for dinner. At the dinner table, it was mainly Guo Zhengyan who asked his eldest son about some government affairs. He had the intention of testing him, and also had the intention of giving him pointers. Guozi, on the other hand, was trying his best to be invisible so that they wouldn't point their spears at him as they chatted. Although the Guo family had given up on interfering with Guozi's development in the entertainment industry, they still hoped that Guozi would walk on the right path. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Guozi saw that there was nothing else for him to do, so he prepared to leave. Unexpectedly, Guo Zhengyan glanced over and said, Z, don't be in a hurry to go back to school. Come here, I have something to ask you. As expected of a mayor, Guo Zhengyan's loud voice revealed a sense of majesty, not allowing Guozi to resist. Guozi had no choice but to sit down obediently. His brother didn't speak again. After pouring tea for them, he sat down and listened quietly. His calm sitting posture made him look like a second Guo Zhengyan. Guo Zhengyan wasn't in a hurry to speak. He picked up the teacup and blew on the tea leaves floating on it. After taking a sip, he slowly looked over and said, I heard that you are now helping your friend, Yang Yi, to find connections with the Public Security Bureau to prepare to film a police and robbers TV series? Hearing his father ask this question, Guozi couldn't help but straighten his back and tense his face. Guo Zhengyan had a background of arresting corrupt officials. His previous reputation was well known in Jiangnan province. However, he chose to develop horizontally and finally became the mayor from the executive deputy mayor. However, Guozi knew that his father was most against his family members being like those corrupt officials' families, abusing their power for personal gain. Therefore, he quickly explained, I'm not trying to pull connections, Dad. It's like this. We are filming this TV series, so we need some support for the venue and costumes. We also need some professional guidance. Therefore, the crew wants to cooperate with the Public Security Bureau of Jiangcheng. Moreover, this cooperation is not one-sided. For example, the rental of the venue and the hiring of consultants, the crew will pay for it. I'm just helping them to build a bridge. Guo Zhengyan knew about this situation. Since he asked this question, someone must have reported it to him in advance. He nodded non-committally and changed the topic. He said, "Tell me about your friend Yang Yi. What kind of person is he?" Guziyi sat upright. He vaguely felt that this was a test, so he didn't dare to mess around. He seriously described Yang Yi to his father, and even picked out many things about Yang Yi's relationship with the government. For example, Yang Yi was the spokesperson of the Southwest Military Region. For example, Yang Yi had a deep relationship with the leaders of the Jiangnan Military Region. 2 of his TV series were filmed in the Jiangnan Military Region. Of course, there were many social and even national awards. Although Yang Yi didn't pay much attention to them and almost never attended the award ceremony, he did receive many personal awards. These were all received by Mo Xiaowan and placed in the studio. According to what little brother said, this Yang Yi is really a legendary person. Guziyi's brother said to Guo Zhengyan with a smile, "Brother Yang is too awesome. You will never know how amazing he is. Every once in a while he can surprise people." Guziyi boasted. "This Sunday night, ask him out for dinner. I want to meet him." Guo Zhengyan finally revealed his intention to call Guziyi over. Guziyi was a little surprised. "Dad, why do you want to meet Brother Yang?" He became alert. He was a little worried about his father's intentions. For example, Guziyi felt that his father might want to rope in Brother Yang to change his mind. Guo Zhengyan glanced at the panicking Guziyi and sighed in his heart. He doesn't have the demeanor of a general. However, he didn't want to waste time with Guziyi. He said straightforwardly, "I want to talk to him about 2 things. First, Jiangnan TV station came looking for me. They hope that Yang Yi can increase their cooperation with them." There was no wall that didn't have a crack in the government. Guziyi was Guo Zhengyan's son. Although this matter wasn't spread in the entertainment industry, it wasn't a secret among the higher-ups of Jiangnan. This was also why they hoped to contact Yang Yi through Guo Zhengyan. What cooperation? Start a program at Jiangnan TV station? Guziyi was a little surprised. Now, Yang Yi's variety program had become a hot steamed bun in the eyes of the major TV stations. Shanghai TV station and Beijing TV station were the winners this year. Other TV stations were also secretly in contact with China Star Productions, hoping that there would be a new program broadcast there next time. Guziyi didn't find it strange that Jiangnan TV station had such thoughts. However, looking for Guo Zhengyan for help was a little like using a butcher's knife to kill a pig. The deputy director of Jiangnan TV station is a classmate of mine from university. Guo Zhengyan briefly mentioned. Guziyi didn't have any more questions. On the other hand, Guo Zhengyan also softened his tone. "I also want to see what kind of person your boss is. You stubbornly want to develop in the entertainment industry. In any case, the family has to give you some support." In other words, was he going to show off his muscles and support Guziyi? Guziyi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. However, he couldn't go against his father's request. While he agreed, his mind was spinning crazily. It seemed like this was a very precious opportunity. Chapter 906. Brother Yang, I have a small favor to ask of you. On Thursday morning at the Phoebe studio in Tingshan district, Guziyi sneaked into the recording studio, approached Yang Yi, and carefully looked at Yang Yi. Murphy, who had just finished recording a song, and was still discussing with Yang Yi, laughed. "Oh, Xiaoguo, why did you come to the company? Aren't you going to watch a movie with Ding Xiang today?" Last week, Ding Xiang had been helping to take care of Murphy and pick up Shishi at the villa, because of Yang Yi's request. This week, Ding Xiang could finally go back. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Murphy felt that these two, who were in love, should be eager to find time to date. Why would they come to the company so eagerly? Hey, don't mention it. Didn't Sister Huan say that Director Du invited her to audition for the role of Lin Yujing? She could have just read the script by herself, but Sister Ding Xiang insisted on staying to help her analyze the plot. Speaking of this, Guziyi was a little depressed. Of course, Guziyi was just complaining. He still supported Ding Xiang. After all, Ding Xiang was warm-hearted, which was one of the reasons why Guziyi liked Ding Xiang. With Guziyi's relationship with Yang Yi, there was no need to beat around the bush. He directly stated his request. "Big Brother Yang, it's like this. Although my father wants to treat you to a meal, can I please be a little thick-skinned and bring Sister Fei, the two children Sister Xiaowan, and Sister Huan along? This guy even used the word please so politely. Your father invited me to dinner. Why would I make such a big fuss? Yang Yi felt very strange. Murphy looked at Guozi with a strange expression. This was the rhythm of a family dinner. Well, Guozi scratched his head a little embarrassedly and said, if so many of you go, can't you bring Sister Ding Xiang too? It turned out that he had an ulterior motive. You want your parents to meet Ding Xiang in advance? Or do you want us to support you? Can you introduce Ding Xiang as your girlfriend during dinner? After all, Murphy was a woman. She was more meticulous and immediately thought of the key point. No, it's not time to lay our cards on the table yet. Guozi hurriedly waved his hand and said, I'm just warming up to let them know about Sister Ding Xiang. By the way, when you introduce her, please praise Sister Ding Xiang. There was no need to exaggerate. Just tell the truth. That is, I want to use your words to let them know how virtuous Sister Ding Xiang is, and how good she is at taking care of people. Guozi wanted to let Ding Xiang leave a good impression in front of his family, before he laid his cards on the table in the future. It was better to lay the foundation than to introduce her abruptly in the future. While Yang Yi was still in a state of sudden realization, Murphy was already discussing with Guozi with great interest. Then, what identity do you want Ding Xiang to follow us as? Is it just your manager? Or maybe I can have some other identities. What do you mean? Guozi didn't understand. For example, she can also be Yang Yi's sister. Or my sister. Murphy laughed. You can't fake it. If you make it up, the consequences will be more serious in the future. Guozi had a headache. It's not fake. This is what Yang Yi said himself. He wants Ding Xiang to be his godsister. Ding Xiang has no roots in Jiangnan. We are afraid that she will be bullied by you. So we want to be her backer. Ding Xiang is such a good girl. If you dare to treat her badly. Murphy waved her fist fiercely. However, her fist was not threatening. Murphy is right. Yang Yi nodded. His simple words were full of threats. Guozi was speechless. Sister Ding Xiang is so good to me. Why would I bully her? In TV dramas, young masters often abandon women. Murphy said, I'm not a young master. I'm just an ordinary person. Guozi struggled to say. Of course, they were just joking. Yang Yi and the others knew what kind of person Guozi was. Now, the main point was to discuss Guozi's plan of building one path in the open while hiding another in the dark. Let's not introduce Sister Ding Xiang like that. It's better to keep her identity simple, Guozi said. Okay. Yang Yi nodded. Murphy thought more. Huan shouldn't go. She might cause misunderstandings. What if Guozi's family took a fancy to Yang Huan? Of course, this was unlikely to happen. Others might think that the Yang family was trying to curry favor with the Guo family. After all, the Guo family was more powerful. It was better to have a young female lead in this kind of situation. Fewer misunderstandings would not mess up Guozi's plan. Yang Yi nodded and looked serious. Huan can't go. At this moment, Yang Huan, who was trying hard to memorize her lines, sneezed. Ding Xiang, who was checking her lines, was anxious. Why did you sneeze? Did you catch a cold? Why did you catch a cold at such a critical moment? In the afternoon, the bell signaling the end of the second class rang. The children packed up their small bags and prepared to go to the training class. Shishi also grabbed her textbooks and stuffed them into her bag. Of course, Shishi cherished the cleanliness of her books. Her books were neatly stacked in her bag. It had been 2 months, but the book cover that her father gave her was still intact. However, the little girl's movements were lighter than usual. She was very excited because she was going to take a drawing class later. Shishi liked drawing very much, especially now that the teacher was not teaching pencil drawing or crayon drawing, but watercolor drawing that required paint and water. Whether it was the mixing of paint or the rustling of the brush on the paper, Shishi found it very interesting. However, when Shishi picked up her small bag and her drawing kit and was about to leave, she saw her homeroom teacher, Ms. Li Ruolin, walk in. Shishi blinked curiously and watched as Ms. Li walked to Lan Xian's seat. Lon Xian, I'm sorry. I have to take up some of your time. Shishi was close and could hear the conversation between Ms. Li and Lon Xian. Are your parents at home this Saturday afternoon? Lon Xian answered obediently. My father is not at home. My mother is at home. It's good that your mother is at home. It's like this. I want to visit your home. The scheduled time is this Saturday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so please let your mother know. I will also leave a message for your mother on the phone. If there's any inconvenience, please let me know in advance. Let's change the time, okay? Li Rulan smiled and patted Lon Xian's back. After the teacher finished speaking, she left. Lon Xian was still a little confused. What just happened? Shishi listened to the whole process. The little girl's eyes darted around, but she did not have time to say anything. She rushed to her drawing class first. Chapter 907. Shishi also had drawing lessons when she was in kindergarten. However, at that time, the teachers mainly focused on guiding her interest and didn't deliberately teach her some drawing skills. Yang Yi also didn't teach her. However, when she was in primary school, the teachers who taught her drawing lessons were much more professional. Just like those art students who majored in drawing in movies, the classroom where Shishi and the others learned watercolor painting was also a small movable table. They would then form a circle, and in the middle of the circle, there would be flowers and plants that the teacher had brought over for them to draw. When they first started learning, the teacher would teach them how to use pencils to draw sketches, how to mix paints, and how to choose watercolor brushes with round ends, flat ends, or different sizes to color. After they had a certain foundation, the teacher would also teach them how to compose a drawing, how to use shadows or transitional colors to reflect rich tones and more. Of course, in terms of techniques, the teacher would also briefly introduce them to different brushstrokes such as dry brushstrokes, wet brushstrokes, hook brushstrokes, sweep brushstrokes, and pause brushstrokes. These were only explained in real life. After learning for 2 months, Shishi could be considered a beginner watercolor painter. Although she couldn't combine many different types of techniques to draw, the flowers and plants she drew were the most similar among the students in the class. At least, she had the correct outline. Moreover, Shishi was very sensitive to colors. Even if it was the same red color, Shishi could always find a way to match it with other colors that looked better. If it was the rapid improvement in drawing, it might be because she had seen too much of her father's pencil drawings when she was young, and had accumulated a foundation. However, the feeling for colors was completely innate to Shishi. Even the teacher praised her endlessly for this little talent. Today, Shishi's hyacinth pot of flowers was praised by the teacher. The teacher only praised 3 students. One is Jiang Lin. Another is Wu Liangliang, and the last one is me. I'm the only one from the 1st grade. Shishi had already told her father in the car. When she got home, she couldn't wait to take out her watercolor painting and ask her mother for praise. There are students from other grades in your class? Murphy was a little surprised. Aren't they also divided into classes according to their grades? Yang Yi smiled and explained. It's not the same. Their painting class is only divided into 3 classes. They are divided according to their learning situation. There's an introductory class, an advancement class, and an advanced class. Of course, the entry class started from scratch. For example, Shishi was in the entry class, and the advanced class was after the entry class. The advanced class was a little special. The teachers would guide the children who had a certain painting foundation, and teach them traditional Chinese painting or oil painting. Generally speaking, the teachers of the advanced class would select some gifted children from the advanced class, and invite them to continue their in-depth studies. It was not open to other children to apply. Therefore, regardless of the age of the child, when they first signed up for the painting class, the teacher would arrange them into an introductory class or an advanced class based on their painting skills. After listening to her father's explanation, Shishi nodded her little head and said seriously, "There's a 6th grade big brother in our class. But his painting is not as good as mine." Murphy took Shishi's painting and praised, "It's really not bad. The blue petals and brown stems, as well as the green leaves. The contrast is very clear." Yang Yi had not seen it in the car, so he went over to take a look. To be honest, Shishi's painting was only at the introductory level. If he wanted to find fault, he could not find too many. For example, the strokes were not smooth enough, the petals were crooked, the stems were not straight, and the leaves were thin while the other was fat. The proportions were uneven. Shishi's best colors also had many flaws. For example, the color of the petals she painted was the same. She did not use any overlaying or brightening techniques. However, looking at Shishi's age, Yang Yi felt that she had already painted very well. At least, Shishi's painting was closer to the real thing, unlike other children's painting where all the flowers were big and round. Moreover, perhaps the little girl's brush strength was different. It looked like the same blue petals, but there were some changes in the depth. It looked like it was real. It's really good. Moreover, there are so many classmates, but the teacher still praised you. This shows that you are still working hard to learn. Continue to work hard. Yang Yi rubbed Shishi's little head and smiled. After receiving her father's praise, Shishi was even more happy like a little penguin. She swayed left and right and even threw herself on the sofa next to her mother, asking her mother to help her put away the painting. Murphy had a habit of recording Shishi's growth. In addition to the routine photos, she kept every painting of Shishi's painting class in a large folder. Yang Yi was about to prepare dinner, but Shishi suddenly remembered something that she forgot to mention in the car. "Papa, let me tell you." The little girl ran over and took her father's hand. She looked up and said, "Today, I heard everything. Teacher Lee said that she was going to Xian Air's house to play." "Ah, go to Xian Air's house to play?" Yang Yi was a little surprised. "Yes, Teacher Lee said that Xian Air's papa and mom were not at home on Saturday. I was going to your house, and then Xian Air said that her mom was at home, so Teacher Lee said that she would go to Xian Air's house to play." Shishi vividly imitated the conversation between Li Ruolin and Lan Xian. Of course, she also added some of her own understanding. In the end, she pouted and said unhappily, "Teacher didn't even go to my house to play." "That's right. Why would Teacher Lee suddenly want to go to Xian Air's house?" Yang Yi, who had never been to school in his previous life, and who had never been to school in this life, was also confused for a moment. Murphy, who knew that Shishi misunderstood something, could not help but snicker. She did not intend to expose them yet. She quietly watched how Yang Yi and Shishi would discuss this matter. "Yes, my grades are better than Xian Air's. Teacher Lee doesn't even come to my house to play," Shishi said unhappily. "Teacher Lee is very nice. She will mend my clothes and teach us how to sing. Papa, I also want Teacher Lee to come to our house to play." "What's the problem?" Yang Yi smiled and said, "Xian Air's house is also here. Let's talk to Xian Air's mother. If Teacher Lee comes, let her tell us. We can invite her to come and sit with us." "Can we?" Shishi looked at her father expectantly with her big eyes shining. "What's the problem?" "Yes, if you didn't mention it, I wouldn't have thought about it. Last time, Teacher Lee helped you mend your clothes. We haven't thanked her yet. This time, we have to thank her in person." Yang Yi smiled. Murphy was stunned. She did not expect that the father and daughter would do such a thing. If Teacher Lee did not come to visit, others would be happy. "You want to invite her halfway?" However, when Murphy heard this, she did not want to reveal the truth. She suddenly thought that it would be good to let the head teacher come to their house. She could ask about Shishi's situation at school, and also ask for advice on how to cooperate with the teacher better to educate the child. At this moment, Shishi was thinking wildly. On Saturday, little Yu, sister Xiaowei, Qi Shiyun, and Nan Zhaoyu will all come to my house to play. They must not know that Teacher Lee will also come to our house to play. Yes, don't tell them first. Give them a surprise, Murphy said while holding back her laughter. Okay, Shishi said with joy. Chapter 908. Saturday arrived very quickly. In an old neighborhood in Wuhu district, Yu Xiaowei woke up very early. After eating breakfast made by her mother, she sat quietly in the living room and watched her mother walk around to pack things. Today, she had an appointment with her good friend, Shishi, to go to her house to play. So, although Yu Xiaowei said that she was sitting quietly, her mood was not calm at all. From her uncontrollable smile, from the anticipation in her eyes, and from the slight movement of her knees, one could see the joy in the little girl's heart. Ewing was worried that her daughter would go to her friend's house alone, so she also took a day off today. Although she had to work until the end of the month, the new lobby manager who replaced her could basically take over her job very skillfully. So for her daughter's sake, it didn't matter if she took a day off. The boss was very tolerant of her. But then again, accompanying her daughter to her friend's house to play was the first time Ewing got on a sedan chair. In the past, Yu Xiaowei didn't have many friends, and Ewing was busy making a living, so she basically didn't have much time to socialize. So Ewing was a little nervous. As she packed things, she muttered, "Did we bring too many things? Let's not bring these, just bring a bag. But we need to bring a thicker coat for you. I don't know if you'll be cold when you come back tonight." Ewing didn't know the rules of Jiangsheng, but according to the customs of her hometown, she couldn't go to other people's house empty-handed. So Ewing took out the box of apples that she bought last night, turned to look at her daughter, and said, "Xiaowei, do you think it's okay for Mom to bring a box of apples over?" Of course, this box of apples couldn't be considered a lot. It was the size of an ordinary milk box, and probably could only hold a dozen apples. However, compared to going to the market to buy apples and carrying them there in plastic bags, this gift box of apples looked much more presentable. Yu Xiaowei looked at her mother in confusion. She hesitated for a moment and nodded. This kind of question was still a little too difficult for her. But Yu Xiaowei felt that the box of apples her mother carried was already very beautiful. The apples that her family usually ate were not so exquisite. At this time, Yu Ying's phone rang. Yu Ying's phone was a flip phone, and the screen was very small. She did not even look at the caller ID and answered the call directly. A magnetic male voice came from the receiver. "Hello, is this Ms. Ewing?" Ewing frowned slightly. She felt that this voice was a bit familiar, but she couldn't remember who it was. "Yes, and you are?" "It's like this. I'm the father of your daughter's friend. I even texted you yesterday to confirm the address. Aren't we a little early? She has been pestering me since a long time ago. She asked me to pick you and your daughter up, so that you can come to our house to play." On the other end of the phone, there was a clear and cheerful voice. "Sister Xiaowei, I'm Shishi. I'm outside your house." Indeed, Shishi had promised Yu Xiaowei that her father would come to pick her up. However, this matter started when Shishi invited Yu Xiaowei to her house to play. At that time, Yu Xiaowei was a little embarrassed, but that was because Yu Xiaowei had never been to a friend's house, so she was a little overwhelmed. However, Lu Xiaoyu next to her thought differently. She said that she saw Yu Xiaowei's mother driving a motorcycle. Lu Xiaoyu didn't distinguish between an electric motorcycle and a motorcycle. To pick up Yu Xiaowei yesterday, Shishi's house was too far away. Yu Xiaowei must have been unable to go to Shishi's house, because she didn't have a car at home. Therefore, the enthusiastic Shishi said that she could let her father pick up Yu Xiaowei. There was no need to elaborate on the following process. Now Yang Yi had already driven Shishi to the community where Yu Xiaowei lived. "It's really too much trouble for you. I don't know how to thank you. It's not early now. We have packed our things. We'll come out now. It'll be quick." Ewing replied with a smile as she sighed in her heart that her daughter had made a good friend who was warm and hospitable. After putting down the phone, Ewing called out to Yu Xiaowei, who had already stood up expectantly, "Let's go. Your classmate is outside. We can't let others wait for too long." "Mom, I'll help you." Yu Xiaowei took 2 steps forward, held her mother's hand, and whispered, "Thank you. Can you help me with this coat?" Soon, they walked to the entrance of the community. However, there were people and cars coming and going outside. It was impossible to find Shishi's father's car in such a short time. After all, Wuhu district was not as sparsely populated as Tingshan district. Every inch of land here was worth its weight in gold. There were people setting up stalls on the sidewalk. Ewing let go of Yu Xiaowei's hand. She took out her phone from her bag with one hand, and prepared to call the number just now. However, at this moment, a tall and sturdy off-road vehicle on the opposite side of the road rolled down the rear window. A cute little head popped out and waved at them excitedly. "Sister Xiaowei, we're here. We're here." Yu Xiaowei reacted quickly. When she saw Shishi, a happy smile appeared on her face. She then pulled her mother's arm, who hadn't noticed yet, and said, "Over there, Mom. Shishi is over there." Ewing looked up. When she saw Shishi for the first time, she couldn't help but praise her in her heart. What a beautiful girl. Wasn't that right? Cece was already very pretty to begin with. In addition, her father had made her a hair braid of the same style, a beautiful dress, and that bright smile of hers. Even Ewing was stunned by her beauty. Ewing came from Sichuan province, which was full of beauties. Although she came from a rural area, this didn't stop her from having a pretty face. This was also why she could find a local in Shanghai to marry. Why she, a single mother working in Jiangsheng, could become a lobby manager early. Yu Xiaowei wasn't bad either. Of course, she hadn't grown up yet. Also, due to her family's conditions, her dressing was a little old-fashioned. She looked like an ordinary little girl. However, no matter what, Ewing felt that she and her daughter paled in comparison to this little girl named Shishi. She was a princess. They probably couldn't even be considered Cinderella, right? Of course, this was just a little bit of emotion from Ewing being shocked by Shishi's beauty. Ewing was still very grateful to this girl who had gradually made her daughter become a little more cheerful. She led Yu Xiaowei to the big car. When they got closer, Ewing recognized the brand of the car. Valiant. Ewing was a little surprised. She wasn't a car fan and couldn't recognize the model of the car. However, she still knew the brand of the car. Sometimes, some rich guests would drive luxury cars to their restaurant to eat. As the lobby manager, Ewing was certainly not short-sighted. She knew that this brand of car would cost at least a few $100,000. The more expensive ones could even cost millions. The window of the driver's seat was lowered at this time. Previously, Yang Yi was worried that he would be recognized and cause unnecessary trouble. Therefore, when Ewing and Yu Xiaowei approached, he lowered the window and prepared to ask Ewing and Yu Xiaowei to get in the car. Chapter 909. The car window rolled down, and the moment Ewing saw Yang Yi's face, she stopped abruptly. Her eyes were wide open, and she looked at Yang Yi in disbelief. She was so surprised that her mouth was wide open. "Ms. Yu. Hey, watch the car carefully." Ewing didn't pay attention to Yang Yi's greeting. Fortunately, there were people coming and going on the road. The traffic was congested, and the speed was as slow as a tortoise. She stopped abruptly, and there wasn't a big problem. Moreover, Ewing was only in a daze. Immediately, her mother's responsibility woke her up, and she quickly pulled Yu Xiaowei over. However, her heart exploded like fireworks. "This is Yang Yi?" "Yes, it's Yang Yi. How could it be him?" Ewing was very familiar with Yang Yi's appearance. One must know that Yang Yi was her idol. Although she wasn't a fan, Yang Yi's development trajectory of coming out of the city and marrying a rich and beautiful woman was too inspiring. Ewing used Yang Yi's success to motivate herself, and she worked hard to write every word well. However, at this time, Yu Ying's brain was still in a state of shutdown. She got into the car dizzily, and she even foolishly sat in the back seat with her daughter. Fortunately, Yang Yi's car was relatively large. The three of them sat in the back, and it wasn't crowded at all. Shishi was able to sit with Yu Xiaowei, and she immediately held Sister Xiaowei's hand and giggled. "You, how are you, Yang Yi?" Ewing finally couldn't help but ask. At this moment, she was really a bit like a fan who saw her idol. She was very excited. "I'm Shishi's father." Yang Yi smiled, and said as he started the Humvee. In fact, Yang Yi had already recognized Ewing. Before, he just couldn't match the person with the name, but when he saw Ewing, his super memory showed its effect. However, Yang Yi didn't intend to mention the incident of bumping into Ewing. After all, the other party's daughter was here. It was better not to embarrass her. But who knew that Ewing would bring it up herself? She patted her head and said in annoyance, "Right, Shishi's bedtime story. I was wondering why the name Shishi sounded so familiar." "Yang Yi, I'm also a writer. I've applied for your fund to support children's writers before." "Oh right, I've also met you before. It was in April this year. At that time, I was very embarrassed. I went to your publishing house to submit a manuscript. Halfway through, I was looking for the washroom and accidentally saw you and Manager Lu talking." "Oh." Yang Yi had no choice but to play along and show an expression of sudden realization. So it's you. I remember now, but you're doing well now. You've written The Adventures of Little Bubba. Manager Lu told me that your book is selling very well and has great potential. Besides, Shishi likes your work very much. Because Yu Xiaowei was not familiar with Yang Yi, she was too embarrassed to speak loudly. So before Shishi could start chatting with her, they found that the two adults had started talking first. Shishi blinked her eyes. After listening to her father, she giggled and said shyly, "Yes, I like Little Bubba very much. It's just that it's too little. There's no more after it. The artist behind it is still drawing. It will be published as soon as possible," Ewing quickly explained. Being praised by Shishi, Ewing was actually a little flattered. She couldn't help but praise Shishi and her father. She gently put her hand on her daughter's shoulder and said, "Xiaowei, didn't you like Shishi's bedtime story very much? These fairy tales were written by Shishi's father, and the Shishi in them refers to your good friend." Yu Xiaowei turned to look at Shishi in surprise. She couldn't help but whisper, "Really?" "Yes, my papa wrote a lot of books." Shishi opened her small hands and said proudly. The shock in Yu Xiaowei's heart made her speechless for a long time. The little girl found it hard to imagine that the little girl Shishi, whom she had always envied, who had her father to accompany her and tell her stories, was actually her good friend. However, Yang Yi and Shishi didn't show a superior attitude. There was no need to mention Sisi. The little girl didn't take this matter seriously at all. She threw this topic aside lightly and couldn't wait to introduce to Yu Xiaowei the preparations she had made for her good friend at home. "Sister Xiaowei, I have a dog and 3 cats at home. When the time comes, I'll bring you along to play with them, okay? They're very cute, and I also have." Yang Yi didn't think of himself as a great person. When he talked to Yuing, he also kept emphasizing that he was Shishi's father. Today's protagonists were the children, so Yang Yi kept a low profile. Yuing didn't expect Yang Yi to be so approachable in real life. You know, Yang Yi's majesty left an indelible impression on her. Of course, it was also because Yang Yi and Lu Benji's seriousness that she was scared, so she mistakenly thought that Yang Yi was very scary. After the change of impression, Yuing also changed the honorifics according to Yang Yi's request. She simply called Yang Yi Yu instead of Yu. The Humvee drove steadily on the city roads, making people forget about its speed. Soon the Hummer drove back to the villa area where Yang Yi's house was located. Seeing the villas with wide courtyards passing by in front of her, Yuing felt that her eyes weren't enough to take in everything. Although she was already mentally prepared when she saw Yang Yi, when she saw these villas now, she couldn't help but secretly exclaim, "He's really rich, living in such a luxurious house." The thoughts of adults were more complicated, but the world of children was much simpler. At this time, Shishi and Yu Xiaowei were huddled together. The two girls leaned against the car window and looked out. Shishi excitedly pointed at a big villa that they had just passed by and said to Yu Xiaowei, "This is Xionair's house. When we reach my house, I'll call Xionair and ask her to come over to play." However, Shishi underestimated Lan Xion's patience. When they arrived, Lan Xion was already in her courtyard, sitting on the swing and swinging around. This little foodie came early because she smelled the delicious food. "Xionair, look who's here." Shishi screamed and excitedly got out of the car with Yu Xiaowei. The few girls quickly gathered together and laughed happily. When Yuing got out of the car, she was still a little confused. She felt like Cinderella who had broken into a royal garden. She had never seen such a beautiful courtyard before. The sun was shining brightly today, and the whole courtyard was warm. It was as if there was no place to stay in the cold of late autumn and early winter. It was still a lush green lawn with some winter flowers blooming around it. It was as if spring had already arrived here. Yu Ying's eyes looked around and finally fell on the beautiful and dignified woman that Yang Yi was walking towards. When the car drove over, the beautiful woman was slightly bent over, taking care of a baby who was staggering on the grass. Of course, when the car stopped, she straightened up and looked at Yang Yi with a smile. Yuing couldn't help but sigh. She's really beautiful. She was tall, slender, beautiful, and her skin was smooth and supple. All of these qualities could be found on the other party. Ying subconsciously compared herself to the other party, and suddenly felt a sense of inferiority. Of course, she knew that she couldn't be compared to a superstar. She should be Murphy, right? The slightly plump lady behind her, is she Yang Yi's nanny? Chapter 9-10. How could a rich family not have a few nannies? In addition, Wu Jingjing didn't dress luxuriously at home, so it was reasonable for Ying to mistakenly think that she was Yang Yi's nanny. Fortunately, Ying didn't try to verify it. When Murphy enthusiastically introduced Wu Jingjing to her, Ying was surprised to find out that this nanny was the mistress of another more luxurious villa, a rich man's wife. Ying was ashamed, but she also felt lucky. She secretly felt that she was lucky that she didn't talk too much. Otherwise, she would have really embarrassed herself and offended people. However, what made Ying a little touched was that Murphy, a big star, didn't put on airs, and neither did Wu Jingjing. They were just like ordinary mothers, chatting with her enthusiastically. Tell us about the book Little Bubba's Adventure that you wrote. Where did the inspiration for this book come from? Murphy was afraid that Ying would be embarrassed, so she took the initiative to talk to her. Yes, Mother Yu, thank you for the book. Although Xianair didn't read it much, I, as an adult, accompanied her to read it. I enjoyed reading it myself. Haha. Wu Jingjing said to Ying with a smile. Ying suddenly felt that writing this book was extremely correct, because this was the only achievement that she could take out now. Of course, they still had to chat normally. In addition to talking about her book, they also talked about children and some topics that women were interested in, such as cosmetics, clothes, and so on. Needless to say, although Ying was a bit down and out before, she worked in a big hotel, welcoming and sending people off. She was also responsible for maintaining the relationship with important guests. She had a lot of contact with those rich guests, so she could talk about any topic. Even if it was expensive cosmetics, she could still talk about it. Of course, Murphy and the others also knew about the situation of Ying's family. They didn't have a car, and they had to be picked up by Yang Yi. They talked more about some topics in life. Gradually, Ying's mentality calmed down, and she finally returned to her role as a child's mother. She enthusiastically discussed the children's education with them. With a new friend coming over, she naturally had to show her room first. Come up quickly, my room is on the second floor. She excitedly climbed up the stairs, and turned her head to say to Yu Xiaowei. Yu Xiaowei reluctantly let go of Steamed Bun's ears. When she came over today, her attention was mostly attracted by these cute pets. What was interesting was that the three big fat cats, Xiao Gray, Xiao Guai, and Dodo, did not show any displeasure to the guests today. Yu Xiaowei's melancholy attracted them. When she summoned them, the three of them jumped down from the cat tree and surrounded Yu Xiaowei. Xiao Guai even let Yu Xiaowei hug it. Of course, they did not play with Yu Xiaowei. This important task was given to Steamed Bun, who was very happy to see his little master's new friend. Steamed Bun jumped up and down around Yu Xiaowei. Sometimes he would come over to sniff Yu Xiaowei's scent. Sometimes, Yu Xiaowei would reach out to him, and Steamed Bun would naughtily hide behind Xixi. Fortunately, Xixi pulled this naughty guy out. Yu Xiaowei pressed her whole body on Steamed Bun, rubbing his face and rubbing his ears. She felt that Steamed Bun was very cute. Like Xixi, she also laughed heartily. It was rare that she did not restrain herself. Now Yu Xiaowei followed Xixi and Lan Xian upstairs. She did not forget to look back at Steamed Bun and ask him to come up and play with her. However, she was still dazzled by Xixi's room, and she forgot about Steamed Bun for a moment. It's so big. Yu Xiaowei looked around enviously and murmured softly. It was really big, bigger than her own house. However, it was not only because it was big, but also because it was inside that attracted Yu Xiaowei the most. Soon, she saw the bookshelf that took up an entire wall. On it were Xixi's dolls and a dazzling array of children's books. Why was it a dazzling array? Because Xixi did not have a lot of books. However, Xixi did not like her books to be arranged vertically like the books in the bookstore. She placed books horizontally in every compartment, so that she could see the book cover at a glance. This way, each compartment could only hold 2 to 3 books. Naturally, it was a dazzling array. It was very spectacular. However, at this time Lan Xian said vaguely, Shishi's books are not big. Mine are big. As soon as Lan Xian came up, she opened a cupboard and took out a big jar from inside. She opened it and took out a few pieces of nougat. These nougats were made by Yang Yi personally when Lu Xiaoyu came last time. He prepared a lot of ingredients, so there was still a lot left. Yang Yi put them in the jar. Originally, Yang Yi wanted to leave them for Shishi to eat by herself or entertain other children who came to play at home. However, Shishi was not interested. She liked cakes more. On the other hand, Lan Xian firmly remembered this place. Every time she came, she would take them herself. She was not courteous to Shishi at all. She was not greedy. She only took a few pieces each time, as if she wanted to make a long-term profit. However, this could not stop Lan Xian from coming often. Now there was not much nougat left in the jar. Most of the ones that had been eaten had gone into Lan Xian's stomach. Lan Xian tore open the candy wrapper and ate one candy. Then, she chewed on it and spoke at the same time. Her speech was naturally unclear. Xian, what are you saying? Shishi and Yu Xiaowei looked over in confusion. Lan Xian did not have the intention to repeat herself. She threw the candy wrapper into the trash can with her left hand and stretched out her right hand. There were 2 pieces of nougat lying quietly in her chubby little palm. She did not need to say anything. Shishi and Yu Xiaowei knew that she was asking them to eat. It was good to share, but something seemed wrong. Shishi did not think so much. She happily took it and stuffed one into Yu Xiaowei's hand. She smiled sweetly and said, "Thank you, Xian." The candy was just a small episode. Yu Xiaowei was more interested in Shishi's children's books. She looked at the colorful covers enviously. She felt that her eyes were not enough. Shishi. Yu Xiaowei's eyes suddenly lit up. She pulled Shishi's hand and pointed to the bookshelf. Shishi saw that the books that Yu Xiaowei pointed to were the storybooks that her father wrote for her. They were Shishi's bedtime stories 1, 2, 3, and so on. She smiled and said, "These were written by my papa." Yu Xiaowei nodded vigorously. She was a little envious and wanted to confide in her. "My mother bought them too. I like them very much." Shishi's interest was aroused. She asked happily, "Sister Xiaowei, do you like Sister Elsa? I'll show you. I have Sister Elsa and Sister Anna." Without waiting for Xiaowei's reply, Cici enthusiastically tiptoed and grabbed 2 dolls from the bookshelf. Then, she hugged them with all her might and ran back with her little butt bouncing up and down. The 2 dolls that Shishi was holding were specially made by the toy factory that Yang Yi bought. They were made according to the character design of the Frozen animated movie that was about to be completed. Currently, Shishi was the only one in the world who had these 2 dolls. Of course, these 2 dolls, as well as the other dolls, were also prepared by Yang Yi to be mass-produced. When Frozen was released, they would be sold nationwide at the same time. "Look, this is Sister Elsa, and this is Sister Anna." Shishi asked Yu Xiaowei to sit on her big bed. Each of them held 1 doll, and played happily. And what about Lan Xian? There was no need to worry about Lan Xian. She had already regarded Shishi's home as her own. She went to pick a doll, jumped onto the big bed, and excitedly joined the battle between Shishi and the others. In fact, Yu Xiaowei just wanted to take a look at Shishi's books. She was still a little girl who liked to read quietly. But which girl didn't like dolls? In the past, Yuing didn't have much money to buy dolls for her, so this interest was suppressed. Now that she was with Shishi, Yu Xiaowei also played with the dolls with great interest. The door wasn't closed, so their laughter could be heard from afar. Chapter 9-11. Today was supposed to be a happy day. When Yang Yi came out with 2 plates of cut fruit for the guests, he didn't expect to see Murphy wiping her tears. Of course, nothing happened. Murphy was just sitting with the guests. She was chatting with Wu Jingjing and Yuing. However, the topic of their conversation gradually shifted to Yu Ying's predicament. Under the care of her 2 new friends, Yuing finally found someone to talk to. She talked about her life as a single mother in the past few years. Although Yuing didn't talk very emotionally and didn't criticize her ex-husband, she simply lamented that she was busy with work and didn't have time to accompany her children. causing Yu Xiaowei to be introverted to the point of being a little autistic. Yuing also talked about the improvement of her life and her gratitude to Xixi for helping Yu Xiaowei out of her autistic state. However, Murphy didn't listen much. When she listened to the beginning, she thought of her previous difficulties and suddenly felt very fortunate. At least she only had a bad start. Later on, she was lucky to meet a worthy man. If it weren't for such a change, she was afraid that her situation would be the same as Yu Ying's. The most important thing was, would Xixi also become depressed and autistic like Yu Xiaowei? Murphy didn't dare to imagine the consequences. However, when such a thought appeared, Murphy felt uncomfortable in her heart. This was why Yang Yi came out and saw Murphy wiping her tears. However, Yang Yi couldn't get involved in the world of women. He just comforted her a few words and was urged to leave and not disturb the chat of their mother group. Let's go and see how the children are doing now. I think Xiaowei should be more cheerful if she plays with Xixi. Wu Jingjing suggested. So, the three mothers went upstairs together to look for the little ones in the bedroom. Before they got close, a burst of cheerful laughter came from Xixi's bedroom. Murphy and Yuing looked at each other and smiled. With Mo Fei taking the lead, they gently knocked on the bedroom door, and the three mothers walked in one by one. On Xixi big bed, the four girls all turned to look at him. Other than Xixi, Lan Xian, and Yu Xiaowei, there was also Lu Xiaoyu. Lu Xiaoyu also came early today, but just like last time, her father went to work after dropping her off. The four cute little girls were each holding a doll. There were one or two spare dolls in front of them. They sat in a circle, and Xixi's tableware and toys were placed in the middle. It was obvious that they were playing house. Seeing the mothers come in, Lan Xian shouted loudly, as if she had been caught doing something bad. Xixi and Lu Xiaoyu were fine at first, but when they heard Lan Xian's strange screams, they couldn't help but laugh and scream. Mom can't disturb us. Xixi smiled with her eyes curved. Yu Xiaowei was a little more reserved and didn't have the nerve to laugh out loud, but she also couldn't hide her smile, and her cheeks were blushing. Seeing this scene, the mothers were relieved. Murphy put a fruit plate that Yang Yi had brought over on a small round table in Xixi's room. She smiled and said, "Mom won't disturb you. Eat some fruit when you're tired. But remember to throw the fruit peels in the garbage bin, and wash your hands." Yuing also smiled and walked over. She helped her daughter tidy up her hair and said to her gently, "Have fun. Have fun with your friends. Mommy is chatting with Cece's mother downstairs. Don't worry." After the group of mothers went out, the door wasn't closed. They heard the voices of the little ones at the stairs again, as if they were discussing a playbook. Wu Jingjing smiled and said, "If you're free on weekends, bring the children to play. Murphy's and my families are more casual, and it's not bad for the children to have playmates. Look at how happy she is." She didn't dare to smile when she first came. Indeed, she's relaxed and cheerful now. This is what I want to see in my dreams, Yuing said with emotion. That's right. If you haven't finished your homework, bring your homework over and do it together. The three children study together and urge each other to make progress. And I also want Xiaowei to guide Xian Air. Her grades are getting worse and worse, and she's not willing to do her homework. She's been procrastinating. Wu Jingjing took the opportunity to say, this was her purpose. Just now Wu Jingjing heard from Yu Ying that Yu Xiaowei's grades were good. She said that Yu Xiaowei would consciously finish her homework every day and read quietly by herself. She didn't need her mother's supervision. Of course, it was also because Yu Ying didn't have time. Her child was so well behaved and her grades were so good. Wu Jingjing didn't know how envious she was. Li Rulin arrived a little earlier. At 2:40 p.m. she arrived at the Hengyi Luxury Villa district. Because someone had told the security office to check Li Rulin's identity, the security office quickly drove Li Rulin to Lan Xian's villa with an electric car, and sent her to Lan Xian's villa. When she entered Lan Xian's villa, Li Rulin couldn't help but be shocked. She had been a teacher at Huijia Primary School for several years. She had visited countless families, and many of them were rich people. After all, Huijia Primary School was an aristocratic primary school. It was reasonable to say that Li Rulin, who had seen many families living in villas, wouldn't be surprised. However, Lon Exion's villa was indeed luxurious. There were several garages, a huge thermostatic swimming pool, surrounded by shrubs and flowers like a garden, and a villa decorated with gold and jade like a palace. At this moment, Llewellyn realized that the little fat girl who usually didn't show off in school actually had such a good family background. Teacher Lee, hello, hello. A fat man came out of the house with a smile. He greeted Llewellyn. I'm Lon Exion's father, Lance Hao Kai. Yes, he was Lance Hao Kai. However, didn't he say that he was on a business trip? Why was he here? Llewellyn was also a little surprised and asked this question curiously. Yes, I had something to do, but teacher, you are coming to visit my home. This is the first time that Exion Heir has a teacher coming to visit her home. As her father, I had to put things aside, so I rushed back at noon. Lance Hao Kai said with a smile. Wu Jingjing, who was next to him, smiled and reminded him. Don't sit outside, invite teacher to sit in the house. Yes, yes. Sit in the house, the wind is quite strong outside. Lance Hao Kai quickly invited Llewellyn to sit in the living room. He also personally made tea for Llewellyn. Sorry to trouble you, I'll do it myself. Llewellyn said politely. At this time, Wu Jingjing also called Lon Exion over. Just now, she called Lon Exion, who was playing happily back, but the little girl was unwilling. Now she was angrily pouting, sullenly greeted the teacher, and didn't want to talk anymore. Why is Lon Exion unhappy today? Llewellyn pulled Lon Exion over and asked with a smile. It's nothing, it's just that she's playing with Shishi. Didn't you come over, teacher? Her mother called her back, and she threw a tantrum. Lance Hao Kai explained with a smile. Oh right, Shishi is Yangshi from your class. Her father said that after we finish talking later, he would like to invite you to their house. Yangshi? Her house is here too? Llewellyn was surprised at first, but she quickly patted her head and smiled. I'm sorry, I forgot. Yangshi and Lon Exion often play together, and Lon Exion often takes Yangshi's father's car home. So it's normal for you to live in the same neighborhood. Yeah, Shishi and Lon Exion grew up together, and the two children have a good relationship. Since Shishi's father picks up the children, let's let Exion Heir come too. The two children go to and from school together and have a companion. Wu Jingjing smiled and said, Teacher Lee, you should have heard about Shishi's father and mother. They have a close relationship with our family. I've seen Mr. Yang before. He's very approachable, which surprised me a little. But today is the first time I've seen Father Lon, and it seems like he's usually very busy with business. Llewellyn said. Haha, to be honest, compared to Yang Yi, I'm more like a celebrity when I'm busy. He and his wife are the most family-oriented celebrities I've ever seen. Lance Hao Kai laughed heartily and said, When Lon Exion started school, I was also on a business trip, so I let her mother accompany me to report. But now this is Teacher Lee's first home visit, so I have to receive her no matter what. It's also a good opportunity to find out what this mischievous troublemaker has done in school. When Lon Exion heard this, she twisted her mouth unhappily and pouted, making a sound of protest. It's not like that. Our teacher's home visit is not only to reflect on the problem, but also to communicate with the parents about the child's situation, both good and bad. Of course, the most important thing is to help the child grow up. Llewellyn was very good at talking. She smiled and patted Lon Exion's shoulder, saying, Lon Exion, if you want to go to Yangshi's house to play, you can go. It's okay. Today, the teacher wants to talk to your parents. Lon Exion's eyes lit up, and she stopped pouting. She asked happily, Really? Yes, Father Lon, look. Llewellyn gave Lance Hao Kai and Wu Jingjing a look. In fact, some things were more convenient to say when the children were not around. Llewellyn was also worried that she would be too straightforward and make the children resist. Seeing this, Lance Hao Kai nodded in agreement. Just as he nodded, Lon Exion jumped down from the sofa excitedly and ran out without looking back. Shishi's house was still the most fun. There were teachers here. It was too depressing. Chapter 9:12. A poem once said, In October, the leaves fall in autumn, and the people on the road are desolate. The small bridge and the flowing water are far away, and the heartbroken person is Xiaolan. It was talking about a chubby little girl who was running on a deserted path on a cool autumn afternoon. This was the most serious run she had ever run since she was born, but she was very determined and never looked back. Even though she was out of breath, she never thought of stopping to rest. At this moment, she was the chubby version of Usain Bolt, the cute version of Forrest Gump, and the gray wolf who never gave up. Huff 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 huff. Lan Xian finally arrived at Shishi's house and eagerly returned to her friends. Of course, she was still very tired. When she came back, she was so tired that she collapsed on the grass and gasped for breath. Shishi and the others didn't continue to play in the house because there were more and more people. It was more open to play in the yard. Moreover, it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and the sun was shining brightly. It was a good time for outdoor activities. When Lan Xian came back, Shishi and the others were playing the game of eagle and chicken. They were so happy that no one noticed Lan Xian who had sneaked in. In this round, Chun Shiyin was in charge of catching the chicken, and Nan Zhaoyu was in charge of being the mother hen. Chun Shiyin was so aggressive that Nan Zhaoyu was a little scared. He still had the courage and desire to protect as a boy, so he tried his best to open his arms and stop Chun Shiyin. Of course, the girls behind him were much more powerful than him. They all giggled and hugged the waist of the girls in front of them, dodging quickly. Chun Shiyin couldn't find any loopholes to break through. Suddenly, she found a chicken that had fallen on the ground. She jumped up excitedly and held Lan Xian. But soon, she found that she was happy too early. Hey, Xian Air is back! Chun Shiyin shouted. Only then did her friends see Lan Xian, who was still out of breath. By the way, Xian Air, why are you back? Lu Xiaoyu scratched her head and poked her head out from behind Shishi. She asked curiously, didn't the homeroom teacher go to your house? Yes. Could it be that teacher has already gone back? Shishi was a little anxious. Teacher hasn't come to my house yet. Lan Xian also wanted to answer the question, but she was so tired that she couldn't speak. After a long while, she panted and said concisely, no, it's still there, but the teacher agreed for me to come and play. Hearing Lan Xian say that the teacher was still here, Shishi breathed a sigh of relief and recovered her smile. In fact, Lan Xian was usually happy to talk about her feelings, but she was still gasping for breath and didn't want to talk much. After a while, when Lan Xian had rested enough, she couldn't wait to join her friends in the game. How could she have the time to chat? Okay. Lu Xiaoyu looked at Lan Xian pitifully. She knew the power of the teacher's home visit, but she didn't say anything. Instead, she excitedly called out to everyone. Let's continue playing. Chun Shiyin, you didn't catch anyone just now, but catching Xian Air doesn't count. Chun Shiyin didn't deny it. She rolled up her sleeves and shouted energetically, I will catch you guys. Come on. On the other hand, at Lan Xian's house, Li Ruolin was discussing Lan Xian's learning problems with Lan Zhoukai and Wu Jingjing. Just as Wu Jingjing said to Yuing, Lan Xian's grades had indeed regressed. In the last few tests, Lan Xian's grades had dropped from 80 to 70. Li Ruolin came to visit because of this. Of course, Li Ruolin didn't come here to push the blame onto the parents. She described some of Lan Xian's problems in more detail. For example, she was absent-minded in class, cut corners on homework, and didn't seriously complete the task of memorizing the text that the teacher asked her to do. In addition, Li Ruolin also conveyed the feedback from Mr. Lu Dashan, who was in the physical education class. Lan Xian doesn't like to participate in sports. You should know that Lan Xian is a little fat. If she doesn't exercise and lose weight, it will be a big burden on her body in the future. It will also affect her academic life in the future. Lan Zhoukai and Wu Jingjing kept nodding. Lan Zhoukai even frowned and said, yes, Mr. Li is right. It's just that Xian Air is a little difficult to discipline. If we scold her a little more, she will be in a bad mood for a few days. If we hit her, her mother will stop me. You can't hit or scold a child. Li Ruolin quickly waved her hand and said, hitting and scolding a child is not a good way to educate a child. On the contrary, it is easy to make the child have a rebellious mentality. Actually, I think Lan Xian is a very good child. Whether it is IQ or personality, She is a very good child. Li Rulan said calmly to Lans Haokai and Wu Jingjing. It's just that you may need to cooperate with us outside of class. Give your child more patience, and use some clever methods to cultivate her concentration. I am a little busy with work. Usually her mother is at home taking care of the child. Mr. Li, if you have any suggestions, just tell her. Lans Haokai patted Wu Jingjing's knee and said, Yes, I will definitely cooperate. But Mr. Li, to tell you the truth, this child has a serious procrastination problem. She finished her homework as soon as she came back, but she procrastinated. One moment, she said that she wanted to eat, and the next moment, she said that she wanted to watch TV. She procrastinated until she was about to go to bed at night, and still didn't finish her homework. Wu Jingjing complained to the teacher. In fact, most children don't like to do homework and like to procrastinate. But in the face of these situations, we parents should be more skillful in dealing with them. Li Rulan smiled and said, Let me give you an example. There is a boy in our class named Wang Lele. His situation is similar to Lan Xian's. His father told him that if he didn't finish his homework, he couldn't watch TV. So in order to watch TV, he worked hard every day to finish his homework first. But every child's situation is different. Lan Xian is a girl. Maybe you need to be gentler in order to prevent her from having a rebellious attitude. Li Rulan said, You can do this. When the child comes back, you can do something with her first. Li Rulan took out her notebook and gestured as she said, Ask her, what homework does she have for language today? What homework does she have for math? What homework does she have for English? Write them down one by one on white paper, and compare the amount of homework for each subject. At this time, you have to do a sequence. We parents have to take the initiative and help her organize her thoughts. Start from the simplest homework that has the least amount of homework, and is the easiest to complete. This is because the child will feel a sense of accomplishment after completing a part of the homework. This way, she will be more motivated to do the next part of the homework. But at this time, or before the 3rd grade, I still suggest that you take time out to accompany the child to do her homework. Li Rulan said, You don't have to watch her write every word, but you need to be by her side. When you are with her, you can knit sweaters or do some work that is very quiet. But you can't play with your phone. We parents have to set an example. In addition to these, Li Rulan also talked about a lot of motivational tips. These were all experiences that she learned from books, from other teachers, and from some successful parents. Just as Li Rulan said, she came to the home visit to help the child grow up, not to call on the parents and teachers to play a double team for the child. After more than an hour of detailed discussion, Li Rulan patiently analyzed and gave suggestions. Lans Haokai and Wu Jingjing benefited a lot. Although Lans Haokai was a billionaire and had a high status, at this moment, he was just an ordinary father. How could a parent not care about their child? Lans Haokai was also very worried about Lan Xian's studies, so when he heard that the teacher was visiting, he rushed back without hesitation. What was worth being happy about was that he didn't come back in vain. The teacher's home visit really gave him a lot of inspiration. Just as Li Rulan was about to leave and Lans Haokai invited her to stay for dinner, Yang Yi came to cut in. Chapter 9:13. For steamed bun. Today was a wonderful and happy day, because many children came to the house to play with him. 1, 2, 3, go. Only to hear Shishi's delicate shout, followed by a string of pleasant laughter, a small frisbee flew out. Woof! Steamed bun excitedly jumped out. While the frisbee was still flying in the air, he suddenly jumped and turned his head to catch it in his mouth. It has to be said that steamed bun, this mongrel in people's eyes, was very talented in sports. Usually, Yang Yi and Shishi often threw frisbees to him, and steamed bun rarely missed a frisbee. However, because he was a dog of a rich family, steamed bun was not chained to a corner like his mother and other seniors, and eventually became numb. He ate and drank well from a young age, and also received love and freedom, so he was able to maintain his spirituality. I want to play too, I want to play too. Everyone wanted to play with steamed bun. When steamed bun ran back wagging his tail, the little guys couldn't wait to fight for the frisbee in his mouth. You have to line up. In the crowd, Yu Xiaowei was so excited that her face was bright red. While she was talking, she also tried to squeeze to the first place. Hee, Sister Xiaowei said you have to line up, you can't fight. She also didn't stay idle. She was overjoyed in the crowd, but she was maintaining order. At this time, Yang Yi's voice sounded from the side. She, look who's here? She subconsciously turned her head and saw Teacher Li Ruolin, who she had been thinking about day and night, standing next to her father, smiling and waving at her. Teacher Li. She's excited shout finally attracted the attention of the other children. Lan Xian was the first to turn her head. Seeing Teacher Li standing behind her, she couldn't help but tremble, and a sense of fear arose spontaneously. What the hell? Isn't Teacher Li at home? Didn't I escape from Teacher Li's evil clutches and run over to Xishi's place to play? Why is she still haunting me? Lu Xiaoyu also stopped fighting. When she turned her head to look, her eyes widened. What's going on? Why is teacher here? Lu Xiaoyu didn't dare to mess around anymore. She quickly put away her hand and smile and stood nervously to the side, not daring to move at all. It was as if she had suddenly turned from a mischievous little girl into an obedient girl. It was worth mentioning that Li Ruolin was also Yang Luoqi's language teacher. When Yang Luoqi saw Li Ruolin, she hurriedly and obediently greeted the teacher. The other children were still fine. They didn't know each other, so they weren't that scared. Yu Xiaowei took advantage of the chaos to snatch the frisbee. She carefully looked at the others and happily hugged the frisbee in her arms. Li Ruolin's appearance was definitely a wet blanket. The children all shrank back and didn't dare to make any noise. Naturally, they couldn't play. Fortunately, Li Ruolin understood the children's psychological state. She smiled and patted Xishi's little head. Then, she went into the room with Yang Yi and Murphy to talk, leaving the outdoor space for the children. Xishi pouted her little mouth and returned to the children's group. She was a little unhappy because Teacher Li didn't let her follow. Teacher said to let me play with you guys. I want to take teacher to see my painting. Xishi treated the teacher as a friend and wanted to show her her work. However, it was the teacher's home visit time, so the children needed to stay away. After the teacher left, Lu Xiaoyu and Lan Xian both let out a big sigh of relief. Just now, they didn't dare to breathe loudly for fear of being scolded by the teacher. Xishi, why did Teacher Li come back to your house? Is Teacher Li also coming to your house for a home visit? Lu Xiaoyu asked in confusion. Chen Shiyin and Yang Luoqi also looked at Xishi eagerly, hoping to get an explanation. No, teacher is going to Xian Heir's house. Xishi didn't have such a consciousness. She even proudly said, Then I asked Papa to let teacher come to our house to play. Ah, why do you want teacher to come to your house? Lu Xiaoyu felt that it was a little inconceivable. If teacher comes to Xishi's house, does that mean he won't go to my house? Lan Xian had another thought. Her eyes lit up as she said, Xishi finally said the true thoughts in her heart. She wanted the teacher to come to her house to play, so she took the initiative to invite the teacher. Aya, Xishi, don't call the teacher to come to your house. After Lu Xiaoyu heard this, she didn't think it was funny at all. She even worriedly said, If teacher comes, your father and mother will be angry. Then they won't let you watch TV or play. Lan Xian didn't care. She didn't know that this would be her fate for a period of time in the future. Why? Xishi asked in confusion. Because when teacher comes to our house, it's to complain. It's just like how Chao Ruolin always complained to the teacher about who fought with whom. Lu Xiaoyu said. Chao Ruolin was the acting class monitor for a month. She was diligent and responsible, but the little girl loved to complain too much and offended many of her classmates. Now Lu Xiaoyu and the others also deeply abhorred the word complain. Xishi was fine. She didn't fight with others, nor did she quarrel with others. She also did her homework on time. She didn't get complained about, so her attitude toward Chao Ruolin was still friendly. But this didn't mean that she felt that complaining was good. After Lu Xiaoyu was once punished to stand, Xishi, who empathized with her, also understood the horror of this word. Ah, then the teacher didn't come to play? Xishi was shocked. How could she come to play? Lu Xiaoyu bitterly said. Every time the teacher came to my house, I would be beaten by my father. Although it was an experience in kindergarten, Lu Xiaoyu still remembered it deeply. She still couldn't believe it. She turned her head and looked around, only to see her other friends nodding in agreement and looking at her with pity. It was as if she was going to be beaten by her father. My papa won't beat me. She was a little lacking in confidence. Little you. Or just said that your father won't let you watch TV. Nan Xiaoyu kindly reminded her. She pouted dejectedly. Only now did she understand the real purpose of the teacher's home visit. She was already regretting it. Why did I let the teacher come to my house as a guest? In fact, Lu Xiaoyu and the others were right. Li Ruolin, who was warmly invited by Yang Yi, was a little flattered. Originally, she didn't think that she had any big problems that needed to be told to her parents, but since the parents invited her so sincerely, Li Ruolin felt that she had to bring out something substantial. Therefore, Li Ruolin racked her brains, thinking about what she didn't do well in school, and what she still needed to improve. Yang Shi is a very obedient and smart child. Every teacher has reflected that they all like her very much. Especially the math teacher, Teacher Lu. She often tells me that Yang Shi is a math genius. In the test papers, Yang Shi's additional questions are often completed, and she can even do it correctly. This means that Yang Shi's math thinking has already exceeded the level of her current age. This is very rare. Li Ruolin praised Shi first. However, many teachers have also reflected to me that sometimes Yang Shi will whisper to her desk mate in class and talk about some topics that have nothing to do with the class. The phenomenon of whispering. According to my observation, Yang Shi used to be very serious in class, but in the past month, her attention has started to become less focused, which is why she likes to whisper. Li Ruolin said seriously, "This situation isn't serious because many children in the class like to talk in class. They talk more than Yang Shi, but I think that you parents and us teachers still need to pay attention to this problem. If we let it go, the children's grades will decline, and it will be even more difficult to correct in the future." Yang Yi frowned, and his expression began to become serious. He didn't know that she had such a problem in school. Murphy felt that it was very normal. She patted Yang Yi's arm and said angrily, "See, you usually encourage her to talk more, but now she's whispering in class." Chapter 9:14. Putting Shi's situation aside, Yuing, who lived further away, took Lu Xiaoyu's father's car with Yu Xiaowei and took the lead to leave and go home. Yang Yi and Murphy invited them to stay for dinner and said that they would drive them home after dinner. However, Yuing felt that she had already troubled Yang Yi's family enough today. In fact, they even had lunch at the Yang family's house. Now they even had to have Yang Yi send them back for dinner. Yuing felt really bad about it. Coincidentally, Lu Xiaoyu's father came to pick up Lu Xiaoyu. Although they didn't live in the same place, at least they were in the same direction. Lu Xiaoyu could send them back on the way. So Yuing and Yu Xiaowei followed Lu Xiaoyu and her father back home. Back home, Yuing helped her mother prepare dinner, while secretly sighing in her heart. Now, she wasn't sighing about how comfortable life was for rich people. Instead, she was sighing about her luck. Not to mention Yu Xiaowei, Yuing herself felt that she had benefited a lot today. Following her daughter, she broadened her horizons and got to know a group of enthusiastic parents. While chatting with Murphy, Wu Jingjing, and Wu Yu and other parents who came with their children, Yuing suddenly realized that she used to be so lonely. If she wasn't an adult and had a job before, she might have become autistic like Yu Xiaowei. Of course, Yuing also gained a lot of positive energy from these parents. She gradually understood that she should also have some social interactions outside of work and family. For example, getting to know these parents and talking to them about some of the children's problems was much more interesting than staying at home alone. In addition, listening to the conversation between Chen Shiyun's father and Nan Xiaoyu's father, Yuing also broadened her thinking on financial management. Yuing estimated that this month's royalties would be enough to buy a house in Wuhu district for investment. These were all brought to her by her daughter. While Yuing was happy, her eyes were full of love as she looked at her daughter who was sitting quietly in the living room and reading a book. However, Yuing didn't know that Yu Xiaowei, who was reading, was a little distracted. During lunch, Yu Xiaowei finally mustered up her courage and gently pulled on her mother's sleeve. She whispered, "Mom, can I make a small request of you?" "What request?" Ewing asked casually. Well, Yu Xiaowei was a little unsure. She paused and said, "I like Shishi's dog very much. Can we get a dog too?" Ewing finally took it seriously. She looked at her daughter in surprise. In the end, she saw a look of anticipation in her daughter's pitiful little eyes. Ewing fell silent. She still hadn't recovered from her previous state of poverty, so when she heard Yu Xiaowei's idea, Ewing subconsciously rejected it. One had to know that for a family like theirs in the past, raising cats and dogs was tantamount to raising another child. It would definitely add a lot of burden to Yu Ying or her mother. At this time, Yu Ying's mother said, "Child, do you want to raise a puppy?" She accidentally spoke with the accent of her hometown. However, the old woman quickly remembered that her daughter had been telling her to speak Mandarin to avoid affecting Yu Xiaowei's accent. Ewing was worried that Yu Xiaowei's Mandarin wouldn't be standard and would be looked down upon, so she quickly changed it back. "Raising a puppy, isn't this troublesome for your mother?" Ewing quickly saw that Yu Xiaowei's eyes dimmed, and a disappointed expression appeared on her face. "It's not troublesome," Ewing blurted out. Yu Xiaowei looked at her mother in a daze. Could it be that things had turned around? Ewing smiled and said, "Our family is different now. We're more financially comfortable, so it's still possible to raise a puppy. Since you like it, Xiaowei, I'll fulfill your wish this time. Tomorrow, we'll go to the flower and bird market and buy one back." Yu Xiaowei's eyes lit up again. Although she wasn't as excited as Shishi, she was still surprised. Shishi didn't know what Teacher Li and her parents talked about. Anyway, they had been chatting for the whole afternoon. Li Ruolin even spent more time at the Yang family's house than at Lan Xian's house. Shishi realized that nothing seemed to have happened, so she simply put down the worries in her heart and played with her friends for the whole day. Yang didn't affect Shishi's mood. At night, the little girl was still in high spirits. She happily told her parents about the fun she had with her friends. Yang Yi and Murphy didn't take out the negative material that Li Ruolin had given them to dampen the little girl's spirits. However, what would come would still come. The next day, when Shishi was still happily eating breakfast, she saw that her father had moved a big whiteboard from somewhere and hung it on the wall of the dining room. The original painting on the wall had been removed at some point. Of course, Shishi didn't care where the painting went. She was more curious about what her father was writing mysteriously on the whiteboard. "Papa, what are you doing?" Shishi looked at it for a long time and found that she didn't understand a lot of words. She couldn't help but put down the soy milk in her hand and asked curiously. Yang Yi finished writing the last few strokes, put down the whiteboard pen, and said to Shishi with a smile, "This is a little game that Dad wants to play with you." "Game? Look." Yang Yi pointed to the words on the blackboard and smiled. "This is the conversion formula. If you finish your homework seriously before eating when you get home, you will get a gold coin as a reward." "Gold coin?" Shishi looked at her father in confusion. Yang Yi took a box from the ground and took out a gold coin from it and showed it to Shishi. There was nothing special about it. It was the kind of game coins that could be used to play claw games in the game hall. Yang Yi asked someone to help get a batch of them last night. With this gold coin, you can buy time to watch TV with Dad. For example, 1 gold coin can buy you an hour of TV. Yang Yi said with a smile. Shishi was not stupid. She tilted her head and said doubtfully, But I can watch TV." Since she could watch TV, why would she buy time to watch TV with Dad? Yang Yi said with a smile. "In fact, the principle is the same. Didn't Dad ask you to finish your homework before you can watch TV? Now that you've finished your homework, your hard work can earn you a gold coin. Similarly, you can also watch TV for an hour." Shishi still felt that something was wrong. At this time, the words that Lu Xiaoyu said yesterday, which left a deep impression on her, once again appeared in Shishi's mind. "When teacher comes, your dad and mom will be angry. Then they won't let you watch TV and won't let you play." Suddenly, Shishi became anxious. She said sadly, "Oh, you can't do that. Did Teacher Li complain?" "Little you." or said that if Teacher Lee comes to visit, Dad and Mom won't let me watch TV. Teacher Lee is really bad. I'm very obedient. Why won't you let me watch TV? Before Dad could explain, the little girl began to sob. Her tears were not fake. She really felt sad. At this moment, it was as if thousands of thoughts flashed through the little girl's mind. There was also a kind of sadness that her trust was betrayed. I don't want to. I don't like Teacher Lee anymore. I don't want her to play at home. She pursed her little mouth. She looked like a pear blossom in tears. Chapter 9:15. In fact, Yang Yi had already considered Xishi's feelings. In order not to arouse Xishi's suspicions, he didn't even mention it yesterday. However, he didn't expect his daughter to be so extraordinary. Her IQ was so high that she could link the two things together. Seeing the little girl's aggrieved look, Yang Yi quickly came over and hugged her in his arms to comfort her. Boo-hoo, I don't like Teacher Lee anymore. Xishi hugged her father's neck with one hand and wiped her tears with the other. He was so kind to invite Teacher Lee to play at home. How could she complain? The students who complained were not welcomed in the class. Yang Yi quickly coaxed her. How could that be? When did Teacher Lee complain? Teacher Lee came over and praised you to Dad. Dad, I'll give you an example. Do you still remember the third unit test? After the test, you asked Teacher Lee a question, and even took the initiative to say that you wanted to help Teacher Lee carry the test papers back. This wasn't Yang Yi fooling Xishi. Xishi had never told Yang Yi about this before. Maybe she forgot, or maybe she felt that it was rare and didn't talk about it usually. This was really what Li Ruolin told Yang Yi and Murphy yesterday. Although Cece felt that Teacher Lee was very bad just now, she was still willing to believe in the good. When she heard her father's words, the little girl stopped crying. She just rubbed her eyes and said while sobbing, because the teacher still has a lot of homework. I can't take it, so I want to help her. Xishi's memory was still very good. She remembered clearly that Teacher Lee had marked the homework during the test and couldn't carry it back. However, the little girl was still angry. Her last sentence was still a little resentful. Yang Yi smiled and said, Yes. Think about it. Why did Teacher Lee visit Xin Air's house but not ours? It must be because you did well in school, so Teacher Lee likes you. Also, aren't your grades ranked first in class? How can a teacher visit the home of the top student in class? Her father's praise made Xishi feel a little better, but the little girl was not completely relieved. She pouted and said to her father, But the teacher still came to our house. Yang Yi smiled and rubbed Xishi's little head. He said, You just said that you invited the teacher to play at home. Look, the teacher still came and praised you. Oh right, there's one more thing. Teacher Lee also mentioned that during music class, didn't the teacher ask you to sing with your classmates? Later on, the music teacher even praised your singing and told Teacher Lee about it. Then, Teacher Lee passed it on to Dad. Li Ruolin did praise Xishi a lot. Yang Yi could casually give a lot of examples, trying to create the illusion that Teacher Lee only praised Xishi and eliminate the bad impression that Xishi had just had. At this moment, Xishi finally believed that Teacher Lee came to praise her. The little girl remembered that she misunderstood Teacher Lee just now and suddenly felt a little embarrassed. She hugged her father's neck with both hands and hid her face in her father's arms. She was too embarrassed to raise her head. Are you still angry with Teacher Lee? Yang Yi smiled and reached out to scratch Xishi's little face. I'm not angry. Next time, I'll ask Teacher Lee to play at home. Xishi felt that her father was exposing her shortcomings. She twisted in her father's arms and pouted. But why doesn't Papa let me watch TV? Why don't you watch TV? Yang Yi quickly said. You see, if you carefully finish your homework before dinner every day, you can get a reward of 1 gold coin. 1 gold coin can apply for an hour of TV for Mom and Dad. Is there any difference between this and usual? Usually you have to finish your homework before dinner, and then we can go for a walk and watch cartoons from 7:30 to 8:30. After that, you have to take a bath. Then Papa will tell me a story, and then we will read a book together, and then we will sleep. Xishi counted with her little fingers and continued. There were still teardrops on the little girl's tender face, making her look very pitiful. But now she didn't feel wronged, just confused. Yes, from 7:30 to 8:30, you have to watch TV for an hour, right? If you don't finish your homework, you have to continue to do it after you go for a walk. You can't watch TV. Isn't it the same? Young-i wiped Shishi's tears and explained. Then why do I have to change it? Shishi was really smart and pointed out the key problem. Then you have to keep watching. Young-i smiled, pointed to the whiteboard and said to Shishi, you see, there are other ways to earn gold coins. For example, you can help Dad sweep the floor and get 1 gold coin. Or you can help Dad dry a bucket of clothes and get 1 gold coin. If you help Dad and Mom take care of your brother, according to the time, you can get 1 gold coin for 2 hours. Like last time, you can get 4 to 6 gold coins for helping Dad and Mom take care of your brother in the morning and afternoon. Shishi's eyes lit up, and she became interested. Then can I watch a lot of TV? Of course not. Watching too much TV is not good for your eyes. Yang-i didn't keep Shishi in suspense this time. He said, but there are other uses for gold coins. For example, you can spend 3 gold coins and tell Dad which doll I want, and Dad will buy it for me. Very good, with these 3 gold coins, Dad will buy it for you without hesitation. This is good. All of a sudden, Sisi was tickled. She clenched her little fists excitedly and asked her father, really? Can I really buy dolls? Yang-i smiled and said, yes, not only can you buy dolls, but you can also do other things with these gold coins. For example, if you want to go to the amusement park, 10 gold coins can be used as a voucher to go to the amusement park. Another example is when we go traveling during the holidays. You can spend 50 gold coins and tell Dad where you want to go, and Dad will immediately prepare to take you there. Shishi's eyes became bright with excitement. She restlessly twisted in her father's arms. Then I can buy a lot of dolls and go to many amusement parks to play. And I can also go to Lu Weisha's house to play. At this moment, the little girl's mind was filled with a house full of dolls. Just imagining it made her so happy that she was about to faint. Anything is fine. As long as you study hard, or be more diligent on the weekends and help Dad and Mom do some housework to the best of your ability, you can make your request to Dad, because this is the reward for your hard work and hard work. Yang-i smiled and said, this is a little suggestion from Teacher Lee to Dad. It is to reward your hard work and stimulate your enthusiasm in visible ways, so that you can become a good child that Teacher, Dad, and Mom will like more. At this moment, Shishi's mind was not on this. The little girl was in high spirits. She pulled her father's clothes to let him listen to her. Dad, can I have more gold coins? I got full marks on the exam. Can I also be rewarded? I want to buy a lot of dolls. This little amount of gold coins was really not enough. The little girl felt that to realize her dream, she needed more gold coins. Hearing her words, Yang-i slightly raised the corner of his mouth. Chapter 9:16. Yang-i knew what Shishi liked, so as long as he mentioned the reward, he knew that Shishi would be interested. However, Yang-i didn't want to add 100 points in the exam into the exchange condition, because although Yang-i was very happy that Shishi got full marks, he didn't want the exam to be a burden to Shishi's happy growth. Having said that, the reward method was taught by Teacher Li Ruolin, and Li Ruolin did say that the exam results could be used as the criteria for judging the reward. However, Yang-i still chose to do it freely, and added some content of helping her parents do housework. Helping her father do housework could improve Shishi's ability to take care of herself. Helping her mother take care of her younger brother could improve Shishi's sense of responsibility and improve the relationship between Shishi and her younger brother. There was also homework. This was to make Sisi study more consciously and reduce her dependence on her studies. It could be said that these programs were more inclined to quality education than exam-oriented education. Therefore, Yang-i prepared an answer to Shishi's request. You can't get a gold coin if you get full marks, but you can get other things. Look here, there's more. If you actively participate in the school's competitions and activities, as long as you participate bravely, you will be rewarded with a gold coin. If you win a prize, whether it's the first or second prize, as long as you win a prize, you will be rewarded with 5 gold coins. Interest classes were a major feature of Huejia Primary School, and various small competitions that were extended from the interest classes were also a major feature of Huejia Primary School. Yang Yi set up such competition rewards to encourage Shishi to participate in some competitions bravely, so as to better develop her interests and hobbies. Of course, winning a prize was not the goal, but a small incentive. Otherwise, Yang Yi wouldn't have said that no matter what kind of prize she won, she would be rewarded with 5 gold coins. Shishi's brain worked very fast. After hearing her father's words, she immediately remembered that she would participate in a competition in December. Papa, then can I have a gold coin? Because I took part in the dancing competition. Shishi looked at her father with eager eyes. Yang Yi was also very straightforward. He put Shishi down and bent down to take out a game coin from the box beside him. He gently placed it on Shishi's outstretched hand and smiled. That's right. Look, you got a gold coin. When you have 3 gold coins, you can ask Daddy for a doll. The little girl held the game coin in her tender little hand and happily swayed her little butt. She looked so happy that she looked like she was in a good mood. All right, let's talk about the last item that can earn us gold coins. Yang Yi said casually to Shishi. Dad gave it a nice name. It's called I'm a good student. I'm a good student? Sisi looked at her father in confusion. She didn't understand. What was so nice about this name? Yes, Dad has discussed it with Teacher Lee. In the future, before school every day, take a card like this and go to Teacher Lee. Yang Yi handed Shishi a hard card with some words printed on it. In the middle was a line of big words. Is Yangshi a good student today? Then there were 10 small words from Monday to Friday below, and 2 circles below them, respectively, said yes and no. Teacher Lee will sign her name on this. How to judge whether she is a good student or not? If Shishi is very obedient today, listens seriously to the teacher's lecture, actively raises her hand to answer questions, and does not talk to other students during class, then it means that today Shishi is a good student. Teacher Lee will sign her name on this yes. Yang Yi said. If today Shishi's performance is not good enough, such as being absent-minded during class, or talking to Xiao Yuer in class, which is disrespectful to the teacher, then she is not a good student. Teacher Lee will sign her name on the no, and remind you what you did not do well enough. You need to correct it tomorrow. If you correct it tomorrow, you can become a good student again. This project required Teacher Lee's cooperation, but in fact, this was also proposed by Li Ruolin. She also hoped to help the child improve. She could not push everything to the parents. However, Yang Yi knew that Shishi was very sensitive now, so he hid the important things in ordinary conversations to prevent Shishi from thinking that it was the teacher who complained. To Yang Yi's relief, Shishi did not have a strong reaction. She was still listening very seriously. In fact, Shishi was more concerned about how many gold coins she could receive as a reward if she obediently behaved as a good student. Yang Yi did not disappoint Shishi. He quickly said, if Teacher Lee signs 5 yes on this card after a week, then you will receive 3 gold coins as a reward. If you don't pay attention and accidentally misbehave in class, you still have a chance to correct it. In the next few days, you have to work hard to be a good student and be an obedient one. In other words, if you sign 4 yes, you can also receive 2 gold coins as a reward. After all, you are very obedient most of the time. However, if you are not obedient for 2 days and are not a good student, then you will not be able to receive the reward in this project this week. Yang Yi held 2 gold coins in one hand and 3 gold coins in the other. He showed them to Shishi so that she could have a direct experience. The award was set up by Yang Yi. He left room for Shishi to make mistakes. He would not deny Shishi's efforts for a whole week because of a small mistake. But Dad still believes that our Shishi has always been a good student. This little test will not stump Shishi. As long as Shishi is obedient, you can receive 3 gold coins every week, right? Yang Yi said with a smile. When Shishi heard 3 gold coins, the image of a doll immediately popped up in her mind. The little girl immediately puffed out her small chest confidently and said, yes, I am a good student. In addition to explaining to Shishi, Yang Yi also gave Shishi a small lockable treasure chest. This was also a product of the toy factory. The wooden treasure chest was as exquisite as a pirate's treasure chest. Of course, its purpose was to allow Shishi to save up the gold coins that she had worked so hard to earn. The little girl happily carried the small treasure chest with a gold coin in it upstairs and prepared to set it up in the bedroom. Yang Yi watched from behind with a smile. However, Yang Yi seemed to be complacent a little too early. He had underestimated Shishi's ability. When it was close to noon, Yang Yi and Murphy were preparing to have dinner with Guizi's family tonight. Shishi, who had just gone to Lan Xian's house to play, hurriedly ran back. The little girl shouted, "Dad, it's not good. Xian Air is too pitiful. Uncle Lan doesn't let her watch TV and doesn't let her eat." Chapter 9:17. Shishi's scream was a bit exaggerated. When Yang Yi helped her talk to Lan Kai, he found out that it was not the case at all. Lan Kai didn't let Lan Xian watch TV because he asked Lan Xian to finish her homework first before she could watch TV. He didn't really want Lan Xian to be unable to watch TV because of the teacher's home visit. However, this new request, for Lan Xian, who had developed a procrastination disorder, was tantamount to blocking her from watching her favorite cartoons. Lan Xian and Shishi both liked to watch cartoons that were broadcast from 7:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. This was also what they talked about on the way to school every morning. In addition, Lan Kai didn't let Lan Xian eat. It was just that since last night, Lan Kai asked the nanny, Grandma Wu, to cook less meat and more vegetables to help Lan Xian lose weight. Poor Lan Xian rushed over to eat dinner, but when she saw that the table was full of vegetables that she didn't like, her face almost turned green. Therefore, Lan Xian didn't know how uncomfortable it was last night. Therefore, the little girl cried to her good friend today, which also caused Shishi's misunderstanding. After understanding, Yang Yi comforted Shishi while he also found a problem. In fact, Li Ruolin also told Lan Kai about the same method. However, it was unknown whether it was because Lan Kai's attitude in educating Lan Xian was not good enough, or because Lan Xian and Shishi's characters were different. Lan Xian didn't accept Lan Kai's arrangement. Instead, she threw a tantrum with Lan Kai and stayed in her bedroom in a fit of pique, unwilling to communicate with her parents. "Papa, what do you think we should do? Xian Air is crying." The kind Shishi still looked at her father worriedly. She felt that only her omnipotent father could persuade Lan Xian's father to not be angry with her little friend. Lan Xian looked really pitiful. Her face was a little chubby from crying. "Your Uncle Lan is still angry now. When he calms down and everyone calms down, we can help Xian Air think of a way." Yang Yi smiled and touched Shishi's little head, saying, "Xian Air is the same. She is still angry with her father. She won't listen to anything we say." "But Xian Air doesn't have anything to eat. Papa, how about we let Xian Air come to our house to eat?" She rolled her eyes. A good idea came up with a good idea. "How can there be no food? Did Xian Air have breakfast?" Yang Yi asked. "Yes, but Xian Air said that her papa didn't let her eat meat. She is so pitiful." Shishi blinked and said. Yang Yi knew that Lan Xian wouldn't starve herself. This little cunning girl, while eating and drinking, expressed her resistance to her father in a fit of pique. That was not enough. She also tried to persuade Shishi to come to Yang Yi's house to eat and drink, and open up a second granary during the war. However, seeing that Lan Xian was so persistent about eating, Yang Yi also had some ideas to help Lan Kai perfect the strategy of disciplining Lan Xian. "Let's talk about it tomorrow." Yang Yi smiled and said to Shishi, "Today we are going to eat with your Uncle Guo's father. Xian Air won't starve. Don't worry too much. However, you can call Xian Air and comfort her. Tell her that Uncle Yang will help her talk to her father. Tell her not to be too anxious." Shishi nodded obediently. At this time, in Yu Ying's cozy little nest in Wuhu district, Yu Xiaowei was squatting beside the sofa happily, playing with a new member of the family. It was a little guy who looked like a doll in both size and appearance. It had a round face, 2 round black eyes and a round wet black nose. It was as if every part of it was round. It was very cute. It was different from Shishi's Bao Bun. Bao Bun's ears were erect. Although Bao Bun was a sunny and mischievous guy, it was just like its ancestors. It always had its ears erect and kept alert. However, the one in front of Yu Xiaowei looked as if it was born to be pretty and cute. Its ears were always drooping and stuck close to its little head, making it look very pitiful. Its hair was naturally curly, and its hair was thicker than Bao Bun's. With its brown curly hair, it looked lazy and noble. Of course, it was also very comfortable to touch. That's right, the pet dog that Yuing brought back with Yu Xiaowei from the flower and bird market this morning was a little teddy. The little teddy was less than 3 months old and was still a puppy. Of course, even if it grew up, its size wouldn't be much bigger. Yuing had considered the problem of space in the house, so she bought a little teddy for Yu Xiaowei. However, Teddy was still very smart. Although it wasn't very familiar with Yu Xiaowei, it seemed to realize that this girl would be its future owner. It turned its head and looked at Yu Xiaowei. Yu Xiaowei reached out her hand, and it didn't dodge. It even tried to touch it with its nose and sniff Yu Xiaowei's scent. However, it hadn't gotten used to Yu Xiaowei touching its head. When Yu Xiaowei touched it, it stuck out its small, pink tongue and licked Yu Xiaowei's palm. Aya! Yu Xiaowei felt that her palm was a little itchy, and she quickly retracted it in fear. When she realized that the little dog didn't have any intention of biting, Yu Xiaowei happily touched it again. In fact, Yu Xiaowei still had a little regret in her heart. This little teddy was really too petite. Yu Xiaowei didn't dare to press on its body. She rubbed the little guy's head like she was bullying Bao Bun. However, Yu Xiaowei still liked it very much. Just like how girls like plush toys, this little teddy looked much cuter than Bao Bun. Xiaowei, what are you going to name it? Yuing asked casually as she sat on the sofa and carefully flipped through the teddy feeding and training manual that came with the pet shop. Name it. This was a big question. Yu Xiaowei hadn't thought about this question yet. At this moment, she put her little head on her knees and pondered. What should she name it? Should she call it Little Red? In Yu Xiaowei's eyes, this little teddy's fur was red, but the red was not that pure. She hadn't learned the word brown yet. However, the name Little Red didn't sound good. Yu Xiaowei quickly gave up the idea. Xishi's dog is called Bao Bun. Aya, I forgot to ask why Xishi calls her dog Bao Bun. Yu Xiaowei said to herself in her heart. She didn't have the habit of muttering. She just said to herself in her heart. Maybe it's because Xishi likes to eat Bao Bun? Then I like to eat noodles. Oh right, your hair is like noodles. Yu Xiaowei's eyes lit up. Wasn't that right? Her family made dandan noodles with red chili oil. For Yu Xiaowei, who grew up with her mother and grandmother and had the habit of eating spicy food, such noodles were delicious. And the innocent-looking little teddy in front of her, wasn't its fur the same as dandan noodles? And it was also brownish red in color. Can I call you Noodles? Yu Xiaowei tried to reach out her small hand and touched the little teddy's head while asking in a low voice. Noodles? Yuing listened and was suddenly a little speechless. She felt that the name of her daughter's friend's dog, Bao Bun, was very strange. She didn't expect her daughter to want to name her dog Noodles, which was also strange. Of course, Yuing didn't want to interfere. In fact, she didn't care what the little dog's name was. The little teddy licked Yu Xiaowei's hand, just like before. Then I'll call you Noodles. Yu Xiaowei thought the little teddy agreed and said happily. Chapter 918. Guo Zhengyan was an important figure in Jiangcheng and even Jiangnan province's political scene. Although Yang Yi had never met him, he would sometimes see him on TV when changing channels. However, Yang Yi wasn't afraid of Guo Zhengyan because of his high status. Yang Yi didn't think of Guo Zhengyan as a mayor at all. The nanny van that Yang Yi and the others drove to the banquet stopped in the hotel parking lot. When they got out of the car, Yang Yi saw that Mo Fei and the others looked a little serious. He chuckled and said, "That's just Xiaoguo's father. What are you afraid of?" "It's exactly because he's Xiaoguo's father that we're a little worried," Murphy complained. "Aren't we worried about Ding Xiang?" Yang Yi turned around and saw Ding Xiang in the crowd. She was so nervous that she bit her lips so hard that they turned white. Of course, she couldn't respond to Yang Yi's conversation. Mo Xiaowan was more realistic. She was a little speechless. "He's not just Xiaoguo's father. He's also the mayor of Jiangcheng. He's such a high-ranking official. Shouldn't we pay attention to him? She was talking about Yang Yi and Murphy's casual dressing. She had nagged them countless times along the way, as if she felt that if they didn't wear evening gowns to the banquet, they would be rude to Guo Zhengyan. Of course, Mo Xiaowan didn't dress up too fashionably. She positioned herself as a manager and always wore an office lady's outfit. She was serious and didn't lose her elegance. No matter how high-ranking an official he is, he's still Xiaoguo's father. What are you afraid of? Yang Yi turned to Ding Xiang and said with a smile, Ding Xiang, don't worry. If you can't solve the problem, we're here. With so many of us supporting you, you don't have to be afraid of their family and friends. We're your family and friends. Murphy hugged Tong Tong with one hand and Ding Xiang's shoulder with the other as she smiled intimately. I understand. Ding Xiang nodded gratefully. They didn't have to wait too long before Guozi hurriedly came down from the hotel to take them to the private room. Today, Guozi was also dressed casually as usual. However, looking at how busy he was sweating profusely. It was winter now. Sigh, it's a good thing that you're not dressed so formally. I forgot to remind you before. My dad hates those complicated formalities the most. It's more intimate to be simpler, Guozi said with a smile. It would be awkward if everyone wore thick clothes like at the awards ceremony. Yang Yi smiled. Don't worry. Even if it's an award ceremony, we'll still dress like this. You've never attended an award ceremony, all right? Didn't I get the awards for your books and music? Mo Xiaowan exposed him mercilessly. The elevator was filled with laughter, and the tense atmosphere seemed to have eased a little. Papa, why haven't we arrived yet? Cece, on the other hand, was independent of the constantly changing atmosphere. She pulled her father's hand and asked while looking around. We're almost there. Don't worry. Yang Yi said with a smile. Remember to call me Grandpa Guo later. When no one was paying attention, Ding Xiang took out a tissue from her bag and quietly put it in Guozi's hand. She was thin-skinned, but she was too embarrassed to show it in front of everyone. However, Guozi, the thick-skinned guy, secretly hooked Ding Xiang's hand and put the tissue back. He turned around and winked at Ding Xiang. Ding Xiang glared at him angrily, feeling ashamed and annoyed. But after a while, she still couldn't do anything to Guozi. Thinking that they hadn't seen each other much in the past few days, and Guozi's pitiful eyes made her heart soften. Ding Xiang gently bit her lip, which was about to break. She spread out the tissue and reached out to wipe the sweat on Guozi's forehead. However, she only wiped it a little, and then she shyly withdrew her hand and put the tissue back in Guozi's hand. A group of people came to the private room of the hotel. Guozi's parents hadn't arrived yet, but there was a girl in the room who looked like a middle school student. Her face was round, similar to Guozi's, but maybe because she was a girl, she paid more attention to her figure. She didn't look fat at all. Before Guozi introduced her, she saw Murphy and Yang Yi and shouted excitedly, Murphy! Yang Yi, I finally see the real person of the superstar. Guozi knocked her head and said angrily, girls should be more reserved. If Dad sees you later, he'll scold you again. Guozi pulled the girl over and introduced her to Yang Yi and the others. Brother Yang, this is my sister, Guozian. She's in her second year of high school this year. She insisted on coming today, and even asked for leave to not go to self-study at night. But don't be bewitched by her. I used to ask Sister Murphy for autographed albums for her, but I later found out that she sold them all to her classmates at high prices. She's a little profiteer. Guozian shouted. Guozi, how can you expose my shortcomings? How am I a profiteer? I was helping Murphy to increase her popularity among the young people. Wow, she even spoke clearly and logically. Looking at her quick-witted appearance, she was almost on par with Guozi. One could only sigh that the Guo family's genes were also extraordinary. But even though Guozi had a good relationship with his sister, he still had not revealed his relationship with Ding Xiang to Guozian. When he introduced Ding Xiang to Guozian, he still followed the rules and said that Ding Xiang was his manager. Why isn't Sister Yang Huan here today? I'm also her loyal fan. Guozian's attention was not on Ding Xiang. After she got to know Yang Yi and the others, she walked around them and asked curiously, It's not just me. All the girls in my class are especially fond of Sister Yang Huan. They're almost treating her as our role model. Since all the girls in your class are fond of Yang Huan, what about the boys? Mo Xiaowan teased. Guoziyan shrugged and helplessly said, some of the boys like her, while some don't. They feel that Sister Yang Huan is too fierce. But I feel that she's more charming. Perhaps Guoziyan really worshipped Yang Huan. When she talked about Yang Huan, her eyes shone with excitement. She waved her arms uncontrollably, as if she wanted to learn martial arts like Yang Huan. She has something to do at school today, so she can't come, Yang Yi explained with a smile. At this moment, Yang Huan was in the room above the coffee shop. She slapped her pillow and complained. Why did everyone go to eat and leave me alone? It's fine. I want to play with Shishi. Shishi, I'm also your fan. I love watching you dance. Guoziyan's thoughts were really jumpy. She jumped in front of Shishi and squatted down with a smile. Shishi wasn't familiar with Guoziyan. She was a little embarrassed as she leaned against her father's leg and blinked her eyes. Can I take a selfie with you? If I take it to school, many people will be jealous of me. Guoziyan took out her phone and asked politely. Shishi turned to look at her father. After her father nodded, she also nodded. Young girls like to make a V hand gesture. Guoziyan also made a V hand gesture. She pouted and took a selfie with Guoziyan. Shishi decided to talk to Guoziyan. Maybe it was because they had taken a selfie together and improved their relationship. Sister, do you go to school too? Shishi asked in a low voice. Yes, but I go to high school. I know you go to primary school, Guoziyan said with a smile. What's high school like? Shishi was full of curiosity. Do you need to do homework? Guoziyan sent the selfie to her class group and let them be jealous. Then she put her phone in her pocket and complained to Shishi. Yes, we have a lot of homework, and it's very difficult. By the way, we have to study at night. That means we have to stay in school to study. I also have to stay in the dormitory. After dinner with you guys tonight, I have to go to school. I can only go home on weekends. Shishi opened her mouth in surprise as if she had heard something unbelievable. Is it that scary? Yes, you guys are much happier now. You don't have a lot of homework. The two of them had similar interests. They got together and chatted enthusiastically. Yang Yi saw that someone was chatting with Shishi and felt relieved. He focused on preparing to welcome Guozi's father. Chapter 919. On the day of Guozi's confession, Ding Xiang told Guozi that since the two of them had chosen to be together, then Guozi could no longer continue to bear the pressure of persuading his parents alone. She would also work hard to bear the pressure together. Of course, Ding Xiang also worked very hard. However, when the day came, she finally understood how great the pressure was. It wasn't just at this moment sitting in the hotel room. Last night, Ding Xiang had been tossing and turning, unable to sleep. While she was thinking hard about what she should say to Guozi's parents, she couldn't help but let her imagination run wild. Some of the terrible consequences of failure tightly gripped her heart. Ding Xiang was relatively strong, so she wasn't crushed by the heavy pressure. She still pursed her lips and tried hard to hold on. If it were other delicate girls, they would have been scared away, right? Just as Ding Xiang sat in the corner of the room, holding a cup of hot water that Guozi had eagerly handed to her, and silently reciting some of the responses that she had researched last night, suddenly Guozi shouted, "Brother Yang, these are my parents." Ding Xiang raised her head in surprise and hurriedly got up at the same time. She saw an extraordinary middle-aged man with an equally graceful middle-aged woman walk in. The middle-aged man's clothes were similar to those of the leaders on TV. Because the weather was slightly cold, he wore an old-fashioned, dark sweater between his shirt and suit jacket. From his appearance he was slightly fat, but not the kind of fat with a beer belly. His shoulders were broad, and his body was slightly large. However, compared to Guozi, who hadn't lost weight yet, he could be said to be much thinner. Perhaps it was because he had been visiting the districts all year round, but his steps were steady and gave people a sense of authenticity. Of course, Ding Xiang had seen the photos of Guozi's parents. Even without Guozi's loud reminder, she knew that they were Guozi's parents, Guo Zhengyan and Tan Huizhen. However, compared to the smiling Tan Huijian standing beside Guo Zhengyan, the serious Guo Zhengyan gave Ding Xiang more pressure. Guo Zhengyan was just like him in the news. He was serious in speech and manner. Although he had a round face, he did not have Guo Ziyi's sense of humor. He was always serious, as if he was constantly emitting an intimidating aura. After all, they used to catch corrupt officials. Without any dignity, how could they make the corrupt officials in Jiangnan tremble in fear? Guo Ziyi had warned Ding Xiang about this, but it was one thing to say. When she saw Guo Zhengyan in person and saw his eyes that were full of vicissitudes, but seemed to be able to see through one's heart, Ding Xiang couldn't help but feel nervous. He's such a powerful person. Will I be seen through the moment I open my mouth? Ding Xiang's hands trembled slightly. She could only place the cup of water on the coffee table beside her. However, Guo Zhengyan's gaze only swept past her body. He was sizing up Yang Yi more. Guo Ziyi was busy making introductions. He could only secretly comfort his sweetheart with his eyes. However, Ding Xiang had no time to care. Guo Ziyi introduced Yang Yi Murphy and Mo Shaowan. Then he pointed at Ding Xiang. This is my manager, Ding Xiang. Actually, she's only 1 year older than me. Because Sister Shaowan found her, she joined Huai Brothers' company. She's now mainly responsible for Yang Huan and my work arrangements. Guo Ziyi purposely didn't mention the word sister in his introduction of Ding Xiang. Guo Zhengyan nodded slightly. However, his habit of being a leader still made him ask in a deep voice, 1 year older than you. That means she's only in her 4th year. Has little Ding already dropped out of school to work? Or did you arrange something else? Ding Xiang was asked a question. All the preparations she had made could not stop her mind from going blank at this moment. 1 second, 2 seconds. Ding Xiang was stunned and didn't respond. Fortunately, Guo Ziyi didn't wait for a problem to arise. He raised his voice slightly and laughed. It's like this. Ding Xiang hasn't put down her studies. Her manager job can only be considered a part-time job. It's an internship. When she graduates, she'll become a full-time manager. Mo Shaowan corrected him. How can she work and study at the same time? Guo Zhengyan frowned with a serious expression. Not to mention Ding Xiang, Guo Zhengyan also had a lot of complaints about Guo Ziyi not attending classes to record shows and shoot movies. Ding Xiang finally came back to her senses. She tried her best to maintain a calm tone as she explained. Uncle Guo, it's like this. After we reach our 4th year, we don't have a lot of homework. Moreover, the school and teachers are more demanding on our theses. I'll try my best to find time to write a good thesis. At the same time, I'll allocate my time reasonably and arrange for Guo Ziyi and Yang Huan's work. Her methodical answer made him feel like he was in an interview. But it had to be said that Guo Zhengyan quite liked it when others answered his questions clearly. Ding Xiang's answer made his frown slightly loosen. Dad, don't worry about Ding Xiang. She's a top student. For the past 3 years, she's been able to get the national scholarship from our school every year. Unlike me, who only got the first prize last year. Guo Ziyi appropriately bragged for Ding Xiang. Now, she can even multitask 3 times without a problem. 2 weeks ago, she took the manager's qualification test. She only revised for half a month and passed with full marks. Don't you think she's amazing? At this time, before Guo Zhengyan could say anything, Guo Ziyi's mother, Tan Huijian, said, Ziyi, she's your senior. How can you call her Ding Xiang? Even if she's your manager as her junior, you shouldn't forget to respect others. Ding Xiang hurriedly waved her hand and said, no need. Of course, this is basic etiquette. Ziyi, you can't look down on others just because you're a celebrity. Guo Zhengyan's mother was indeed from a big family in Min province. She was very strict when it came to such matters. This scared Ding Xiang so much that she didn't dare to speak carelessly, and Guo Ziyi didn't dare to anger his mother either. He obediently called out, Senior Ding Xiang. At this time, Tan Huijian's expression finally softened. She smiled and said to Ding Xiang, Little Ding, I'll have to trouble you to take care of Ziyi. He's still a young child. If he does something wrong, you can point it out to him. Tan Huijian really treated Ding Xiang as Guo Ziyi's manager. But her smile made Ding Xiang feel a little flattered, and she hurriedly agreed. However, this was just a small interlude. After that, Tan Huizhen nodded and didn't say anything else. Guo Zhengyan wouldn't pay too much attention to Ding Xiang. After all, the person he wanted to meet today was Yang Yi. After introducing Ding Xiang, they sat down at the table. Ding Xiang sat beside Xixi and helped to take care of Xixi. She helped to put food in Xixi's bowl so that Yang Yi and Murphy could talk to Guo Zhengyan without any interference. Guo Zhengyan almost didn't look at Ding Xiang again. He and Yang Yi simply talked about other things, and then they got to the main topic. As the mayor of Jiangqing City and a member of the leadership team of Jiangnan Province, Jiangqing City was the provincial capital of Jiangnan Province. Even if the director of Jiangnan TV station didn't find him, Guo Zhengyan still hoped that Jiangnan TV station could be as popular as Xiangnan TV station. Jiangnan TV station is a window for Jiangqing City, and even the entire Jiangnan Province, to the people of the whole country, a showcase. If it's done well, Jiangnan's wonderful side to the people of the whole country can be seen by more people. Let me give you an example. Xiangnan TV station is the best among the local TV stations in the country. It also tries its best to show Xiangnan's local characteristics, delicacies, and snacks in all its programs. Xiangnan's tourism industry also benefited from Xiangnan TV station's promotion, which allowed it to develop rapidly. Although Jiangnan TV station is still above average among the local TV stations in the country, it still lacks a main program that can be brought out, and it also lacks some good and popular TV dramas. Guo Zhengyan was more direct with Yang Yi. He quickly said his request. The director of Jiangnan TV station found me. I just found out that you are the most popular program producer in the country, so can I trouble you to design a variety show for Jiangnan TV station to broadcast on Jiangnan TV station? Of course, just like your cooperation with Beijing TV station and Shanghai TV station, Jiangnan TV station will do its best to provide you with the resources you need. Chapter 920. For Yang Yi and the others, the main purpose of their visit today was to boost Ding Xiang's courage. At the same time, they could put in a few good words for Guo Ziyi's parents, praising Guo Ziyi's bright future as an actor, so that they would be less worried about Guo Ziyi's future. However, Yang Yi did not expect that Guo Zhengyan, the mayor of a provincial capital, would help the TV station to persuade him to help design a program. Of course, there were reasons behind this that Yang Yi did not know. For example, the Jiangnan TV station head was Guo Zhengyan's university classmate, and Guo Ziyi had to address him as uncle. Furthermore, Jiangqing had also been promoting the development of the arts industry in the coastal area with the advantage of being adjacent to Shanghai. Guo Zhengyan, the mayor, was also willing to make a trip, not to mention the relationship with Guo Ziyi. Of course, this was not to take advantage of Yang Yi. Guo Zhengyan had already said that it would still be business as usual. Whatever treatment Beijing TV station gave China Star, Jiangnan TV station would also give it to them. Guo Zhengyan's official title could not suppress Yang Yi, but he did not mind at all. However, he was Guo Ziyi's father, so Yang Yi could not reject him directly. Moreover, thinking about it carefully, there seemed to be room for maneuvering. In this world, Jiangnan was geographically similar to the two provinces in Yang Yi's previous world. The status of Jiangnan TV station in the local TV stations was similar to the status of the two provinces in Yang Yi's previous world. Although it could not be compared to Xiangnan TV station, it was still considered an outstanding talent in the second tier. It also had a considerable number of loyal viewers nationwide. Jiangnan TV station was located in the coastal area. Due to Jiangqing's support, many well-known talent agencies and record companies had also moved here from Shanghai, where the rent was expensive. Therefore, Jiangnan TV station did not have to worry about the resources for artists. Of the two programs that Yang Yi had created, the ultimate challenge was given to Shanghai TV station, and China's Voice was given to Beijing TV station. As for who to give the third program to, it was still an undecided question for Yang Yi. Whether it was from the viewership ratings or the profits from market operations, handing it over to Xiangnan TV station was of course the best choice. Unfortunately, Yang Yi had quite a bit of conflict with Xiangnan TV station. Even though the person involved had been arrested, he still had a prejudice against Xiangnan TV station. The straightforward Yang Yi naturally wouldn't hand it over to them. In that case, Jiangnan TV station, which was willing to provide resources and promise great convenience and support, was also a good choice. Jiangnan television station's variety program operations were still not mature enough. Yang Yi believed that if they did not have any well-known programs that could be exported, other than the program production department not doing enough, the operations and publicity departments would also have to take the blame. However, Yang Yi was not too worried about this. After the successful operations of the two shows, the operation team led by Yin Yangfeng and Zhongxing Productions could already be considered an elite team in the industry. As long as the TV station was willing to cooperate, Yin Yangfeng and his team would have a bright future. Therefore, after Yang Yi pondered for a while, he said to Guo Zhengyan, "Cooperating with Jiangnan TV station to produce a program is a win-win for both of us. However, I can't give you an answer as to how we'll cooperate and what kind of program we'll produce. This requires my team to discuss further with Jiangnan TV station's variety program department. Your attitude is enough. I'll let the people of Jiangnan TV station cooperate with you. The main thing is to produce results." Guo Zhengyan sighed. Jiangcheng has changed a lot in recent years. The government has made a lot of efforts in environmental protection and the development of tourism resources. However, our efforts alone are not enough. There's an old saying that goes, "Good goods must know how to sell." Our efforts in publicity are still not enough. Yang Yi chatted with Guo Zhengyan about this topic for a while. Gradually, Guo Zhengyan talked about Yang Yi's previous military works. If the previous topic was just a matter of work, then the current discussion about soldiers' assault and drawing sword was Guo Zhengyan's personal interest. In the beginning, Guo Zi knew that Yang Yi had written these books because he was too naughty and was grounded. As a result, he found Soldier's Assault on his father's bookshelf and recognized the author's name. However, in reality, the person who was interested in these books was Guo Zhengyan. Therefore, Guo Zhengyan and Yang Yi found a common topic in these two works. It was rare that Guo Zhengyan did not have a straight face. He told Yang Yi about his past experience as a soldier in Min province. Of course, Guo Zhengyan's soldier was a little different from Yang Yi's. He was considered a compulsory soldier, the kind who could retire after 3 years of service. Moreover, he was stationed in Min province and did not need to go to the battlefield. Especially with Guo Zhengyan's background, it was no different from gilding himself in the army. However, for those who had been in the army, the plot description in Soldier's Assault could still evoke their feelings of being a soldier and awaken many dusty memories. I also met Zi's mother in Min province. The topic had gone off track at some point. Guo Zhengyan turned to look at his wife and showed one of the few smiles he had. But at that time my dad did not manage to win my mom's heart. It was later when he went to Min province to catch corrupt officials and rekindled their old love. Only then did he bring my mom back. Guo Ziyan, who was next to him, was a professional at undermining him. At that time, Guo Zhengyan had not yet worked in Jiangnan. After he retired, he went to the National Disciplinary Agency and was later sent to the provincial office. What do you mean by rekindling their old love? Do you even know how to use words? Tan Huizhen scolded in annoyance. However, she was obviously not as strict with Guo Ziyan as she was with Guo Zi. She just glared at her. Guo Ziyan stuck her tongue out mischievously and even winked at Shishi on purpose. Shishi was originally very bored and did not understand what the adults were saying. However, with Guo Ziyan teasing her, the little girl also winked and giggled with Guo Ziyan. Uncle Guo used to be in the disciplinary work. Yang Yi was a little interested in this. Although he was on the side of the dark side in his previous life, before he transmigrated, he was also enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens and found trouble with many corrupt officials. Guo Zhengyan's interest was piqued when they talked about what he was most proud of. He gestured with his finger at Yang Yi. 20 years. 20 years. Yang Yi was a little surprised. Then Uncle Guo must have caught many corrupt officials. Guo Zhengyan sighed softly. Countless but still endless. This is the sorrow of the country and the people. Yeah, there's no end to catching corrupt officials. 2 years ago, Didn't Shanghai expose a corrupt official with hundreds of millions in his family? Guozi ridiculed. That's why I said that the bureaucracy is too complicated and there are too many temptations. It's not suitable for me. I'll just obediently be an actor and work hard for my dream. Guo Jingyan's face turned serious as he unhappily said, in the bureaucracy, there are corrupt officials and honest officials. In our civil service, there are also many officials who are clean and honest. Why can't you become someone like them? Uncle Guo, everyone has their own aspirations, and you can't force them. As long as you don't just sit there and do nothing, as long as you can achieve wonderful results in your chosen path, then it's a valuable and meaningful life. Yang Yi immediately persuaded. Furthermore, I feel that the main reason why there are so many corrupt officials is because your propaganda is not effective enough, and the deterrence of corruption is not enough. Yang Yi originally wanted to change the topic to reignite Guo Jingyan's interest. However, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration, and recalled a famous drama in his previous life. Chapter 921. When Yang Yi mentioned that the main reason for the endless number of corrupt officials was that the propaganda and deterrence of corruption were not enough, Guo Jingyan was very unhappy. His face darkened and he said, the existence of the discipline inspection team is a great deterrent to corrupt officials. That's true, but this team is too mysterious. Ordinary people and ordinary officials can't get in touch with them at all. They can't understand the fear and regret of the corrupt officials when they are caught. When they encounter temptation, I'm afraid the resistance in their hearts won't be enough. Yang Yi said. What do you mean? Guo Jingyan frowned and asked. Guozi accompanied by the side and thought of something. He said with a smile. Brother Yang, are you thinking of an anti-corruption work? Yang Yi didn't keep them in suspense. He nodded and said, yes, it's just like when we ordinary people understand the military life. It's difficult for us to experience it personally. More often we see the barracks, tanks, and ships that they can't come into contact with in their normal lives through literature and movies. By the same logic, an anti-corruption work has more impact on ordinary people and the younger generation than a few simple lines of reporting that a corrupt official was found, and how many years they were sentenced to. It's more effective. Guo Jingyan nodded slightly. His eyes that seemed to be able to see through people's hearts stared at Yang Yi's face and said slowly, Little Yang, tell me what you think. Let me give you an example. Let's say that on TV, there is an anti-corruption TV series with high ratings. Everyone is watching it. At this time, there is a scene like this. The people of the Discipline Inspection Department found a corrupt official. In his house, they found a wall full of banknotes and a bed full of banknotes. In the TV camera, the corrupt official cried bitterly in the background of hundreds of millions of banknotes. How shocking would it be? Yang Yi said. Guo Jingyan was fine. He had seen a lot of corrupt officials cry bitterly in the past. Guozi was surprised and asked, a wall full of banknotes? There are corrupt officials who are so stupid. They don't keep their money in the bank but at home. Aren't they afraid that rats will eat it? Also, if it were gold or diamonds, wouldn't it be easier to escape like that guy in Shanghai? Yang Yi explained, this is an artistic effect. You want to highlight the greed of the corrupt officials in your artistic works. You want to display all the corruption to be more direct and shocking. No, this is not an artistic effect. Guo Jingyan waved his hand, his finger gently tapped on the table, and said seriously, in reality, there are indeed people like this, and there are many corrupt officials who try to hide money in their secret real estate. Money is easier to spend than gold and silver. It's even more impossible to keep it in the bank. After the accident, it's too easy to trace it and freeze it. Does that mean this situation is real? No wonder Big Brother Yang said that it would be more effective to make it into a TV series. Many people don't know about this. Guozi said. Not only is this image shocking, but the most important thing is the repentance of the corrupt official in this image. Yang Yi then vividly recited Zhao Dahan's repentance after his psychological breakdown. Especially when Yang Yi read, my family has been farmers for generations, and I'm the son of a farmer. I'm afraid of being poor. At this time, the prosecutor reprimanded. Why didn't you think of yourself as the son of a farmer when you were embezzling money? Why are Chinese farmers so unlucky? Why do they have such a bad son like you? Yang Yi played two roles. His fierce imitation made Guozi want to laugh, but he suddenly felt that he couldn't laugh. Every sentence hit the heart. Guo Zhengyan couldn't help but slap the table and said angrily, "Well said, why are Chinese farmers so unlucky?" Xiao Yang's sarcasm is spot on. All the corrupt officials in our country are like this. When they're greedy for money, they don't mention that they're the son of a farmer. When they're caught, they all say that they're the son of a farmer. Don't slap the table and chair. The children are still watching. It's not good to scare them. Tan Huijin whispered to remind Guo Zhengyan, who was a little too excited. Guo Zhengyan was affected by Yang Yi's words. It was as if he had returned to the days when he fought against corrupt officials. Of course, as the mayor of a city, Guo Zhengyan's temperament was definitely not bad. He quickly regained his composure. Xiao Yang's idea is very good. Anti-corruption-themed works can indeed serve as a warning to the younger generation. It can also educate more people. Don't stretch your hand, or you'll be caught. Guo Zhengyan said in a deep voice. Go ahead and do your work. Jiangnan TV station will provide you with the greatest convenience. If you need material, I can also let my colleagues in the Discipline Inspection Department communicate with you. In fact, Yang Yi didn't need material. Not to mention that he could copy the original TV series. Even if it was a real anti-corruption case, he had many of his own. He had seen too many corrupt officials hide and ask for money. The key to filming this movie was still a large group of veteran actors. Yang Yi thought for a while. The only person he could think of was director Chen Fengchen. But there was a problem. Chen Fengchen was from CCTV. However, with the help of Jiangnan TV station, there should be no obstacles in the system. After chatting with Guo Zhengyan for a while, Yang Yi decided that he would invest in this anti-corruption themed movie. This movie would also be aired on Jiangnan TV station. This kind of movie indeed needed the support of the government to continue filming. However, Yang Yi still felt that this movie was very interesting. After all, in his previous life. After talking about this topic, under Tan Huijin's suggestion, they no longer talked about official matters. Instead, they talked about other relaxing topics. Guo Ziyan rested her chin on her hand and asked with a gossipy face, Brother, tell me, how did you get to know Uncle Yang? How did I become Uncle Yang? Yang Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Guo Ziyan giggled and said, Shishi and I are brothers now. No, we are sisters now. Shishi calls me sister, so of course I have to call you uncle. Shishi, who had sat beside Guo Ziyan, also giggled. She gestured and said, Yes, because I am your sister. You have to call me Uncle Papa. I will also call you Uncle Xiaogua. You are the one who calls him Uncle Xiaogua, not the other way around. Guo Ziyan corrected Shishi's words with a smile. Guo Ziyi wanted to cry but had no tears. Guo Ziyan, I am not much older than you. How can I be older than you? However, when it came to how Yang Yi and Guo Ziyi met, it was a long story. Yang Yi tried to make it as simple as possible. When he talked about the history of how he met Guo Ziyi, he also mentioned that it was Guo Ziyi who recommended Ding Xiang to work part-time in Yang Yi's coffee shop. Sister Ding Xiang is also an employee of your coffee shop? Guo Ziyan asked in surprise. Mo Fei also took the opportunity to say a few more good words about Ding Xiang. Yes, Ding Xiang is very diligent and can make cakes. At that time, Xiaoguo often came to the shop because Ding Xiang's cakes are very delicious. I learned it from Brother Yang, Ding Xiang explained embarrassedly. At this moment, it seemed that they had returned to the original script. Mo Xiaowan also took the opportunity to say, Actually, it's not good to eat too much cake. Xiaoguo put on too much weight last year, and he also realized it. In order to expand his acting career, he needed to lose weight. Our people made a detailed weight loss plan for him. The plan was basically carried out and supervised by Ding Xiang. However, it was also thanks to Ding Xiang's cooking that Xiaoguo could eat healthy and not eat bad food. Now, Uncle, Auntie, what do you think of Xiaoguo's weight loss plan? Here, Mo Xiaowan couldn't give all the credit for losing weight to Ding Xiang. That would arouse suspicion. He lost a lot of weight. If he didn't say that he was on a diet, I would be worried. Tan Huijin smiled. Only people who lose weight will have energy. Guo Jingyan commented concisely. Sister Ding Xiang also cooks for my brother? Guo Ziyan blinked and said in surprise. She was a little bored, so she tugged at Guo Ziyan's clothes. It's mainly because when Xiaoguo was filming and recording in Shanghai, we hired a nutritionist to determine the amount of nutrients and calories that Xiaoguo needed to eat every day. In the end, this heavy burden fell on Ding Xiang. However, Xiaoguo was also very persevering. He persisted in exercising and finally lost weight. Mo Xiaowan said casually. It's all thanks to Ding Xiang. Ziyi is still young and immature. With a meticulous manager taking care of him, we can rest assured. As Yang Yi and the others only mentioned Ding Xiang casually, Tan Huizhen did not notice it. However, from a mother's point of view, she looked at Ding Xiang with admiration and approval. In modern urban life, there were not many girls who could take care of others. Guo Ziyan was pestered by Shishi, so she could only lower her head. She heard Shishi whisper, "Sister, let's ignore them. The adults are too bored. Let's go to the side and chat, okay?" Hey, I haven't finished listening. Okay, I'll give it to you. Why are you so interested in high school life? Guo Ziyan wanted to continue listening. She felt that there was something that she had not grasped, and her heart was itching. However, she was pulled aside by Shishi in the end. Because there is no TV to watch and we have to do a lot of homework. Isn't that terrible? If we can't go home, what will you do, sister? It's not terrible. Even if there is no TV to watch, we have a lot of fun. Let me tell you, only children like to watch TV and cartoons. We have a lot of fun, and we have a lot of fun in the dormitory. It's boring at home. Ah. But if we are not at home, we won't be able to see Papa. Hee, that's why you are still a child. Chapter 922. As the night deepened and the lanterns were lit, the beautiful river town entered its nightscape mode. In a nanny van, Murphy was sighing to Yang Yi. I was a little nervous for Ding Xiang. Although I knew that Xiaoguo's father was the mayor, I never expected that the mayor would be so terrifying. Don't be fooled by my words. I didn't even dare to look Xiaoguo's father in the eye. He's too stern, even more imposing than the police. Is he as imposing as our father? Yang Yi teased. Xiaowan told me that our father was going to carry his gun across the sea to shoot at me. I was so scared that I didn't even dare to move. Mo Fei rolled her eyes at him and said, My dad was just joking. He wasn't really fierce to you. Furthermore, Xiaoguo's mother isn't simple. Just by looking at her, I feel that she has a powerful background. Did you see her reprimand Xiaoguo? Her family is so strict. Murphy said with lingering fear. I'm just worried that Ding Xiang will be angered by her mother-in-law when she marries over. Yang Yi smiled. Don't worry. Doesn't Ding Xiang still have Xiaoguo? He will definitely protect Ding Xiang. Furthermore, judging from tonight's performance, Xiaoguo's mother has a good impression of Ding Xiang. Guo Ziyi and the rest were afraid that they would be exposed. Hence, they didn't introduce Ding Xiang much today, and they even picked out the good points. Tan Huizhen couldn't relate this thin and capable girl to her future daughter-in-law. Hence, she was more concerned about whether Guo Ziyi took good care of himself when he was busy with his career. But when she heard that Ding Xiang was not only good in her studies, but she could also help Guo Ziyi at work. She was also good at cooking, and under the company's arrangement, she had contributed a lot to Guo Ziyi's weight loss. Hence, she naturally admired Guo Ziyi as a work partner. I'm telling you this because she doesn't know that Ding Xiang is little Guo's girlfriend. If she knows, she'll definitely ask for more. Murphy said seriously. Yang Yi felt that Murphy's words were very reasonable, but he couldn't think of any good ideas. He could only sigh softly. This will depend on little Guo and Ding Xiang's own efforts. After all, we are outsiders and can't help much. Yang Yi and Murphy fell into silence. This topic was obviously too difficult. Shishi sat in the back seat and listened to her parents' conversation. She was so confused that she couldn't interrupt or find a chance to speak. She couldn't sit still any longer. At this moment, it just so happened that the conversation between Yang Yi and Mo Fei had come to an end, and the car fell into silence for a while. Cece, who had been twisting around, was delighted to find that her opportunity had come. Papa. She hadn't spoken much to her father tonight. At this moment, her excited voice was clear and crisp, like the sound of jade gently colliding with each other. Yang drove and responded with a nasal voice. She didn't care about these details and asked crisply, Papa, do you know why I like elementary school the most? This question was a little out of the blue, and Yang was also confused. He asked doubtfully, I don't know why. Because I know. We don't have much homework, and I can watch TV, but Sister Xiaoyan can't watch TV. Then, she has to be asked to stay in school by the teacher, and can't go home at night. Shishi's understanding seemed to be a little different from what Guizian had told her. It was self-study at night, but Shishi mistakenly thought that it was being asked to stay in school by the teacher. Murphy was very naive, and asked in surprise, Stay in school? Why does she have to stay in school? Because she has a lot of homework. Shishi excitedly opened her small hands, and described a lot of homework that she understood. Oh, it's normal to have a lot of homework. After all, your sister Xiaoyan is a high school student. She has learned more knowledge, so of course, she has a lot of homework. Murphy said with a smile. Shishi didn't answer her mother's question, but said, Then Sister Xiaoyan also said that they are actually very fun at school. She said that there are a lot of things, and that they don't live at home, they can live with their classmates. Speaking of this, Shishi giggled again and said sweetly to her father, Papa, do you know? I don't want to grow up. I don't want to go to high school like Sister Xiaoyan. Do you know why? Why? Yang satisfied Shishi's request. Because I don't want to not go home. If I don't see Papa, I will be very sad and want to cry. Shishi said very seriously. Yang suddenly felt that his heart was about to melt. If it weren't for the fact that he was driving, he would have hugged this little cotton-padded jacket and kissed her little face. It's good that you don't grow up. Don't grow up. Yang laughed foolishly. Murphy said sourly, You don't want to grow up because you are afraid of not seeing Papa. Then what about Mom? Won't you be sad if you don't see Mom? Shishi hummed and hugged her mother's arm. She drilled her head into her mother's arms and mischievously twisted her head. Along with her muffled laughter, she said, Hee, there is also Mom. No, Mom is incidental. Murphy was still jealous. In Murphy's arms, Tong Tong was lying comfortably in his mother's warm arms, and was about to fall asleep. Suddenly, a long-haired head stretched over and occupied his territory. The hair tickled his nose and mouth, and the little guy suddenly disappeared. This familiar smell, yes, it must be his sister. Sister, bad. Tong Tong pressed his sister's head with one hand and pouted his little mouth. He complained to his mother with his inarticulate voice. Sister is not bad. Shishi straightened up and made a face at Tong Tong. Tong Tong did not want to comply and twisted in his mother's arms. He pointed at his sister and said in a childish voice, Bad. Sister is playing with you. Murphy smiled and rubbed the little guy's head and comforted him. Fortunately, after little Momo took back his territory, he was no longer angry. He lay back comfortably on the ground again. However, the little guy did not obediently close his eyes and sleep. Instead, he turned his little head and stared at his sister in a daze. In his line of sight, his sister was chatting with his parents and laughing happily from time to time. However, it did not seem like there was anything interesting to see. Who knew what kind of life problems such a little guy was thinking about in his little head? Or perhaps he was not thinking about anything. He just thought it was fun and longed to be able to join his sister's laughter as soon as possible. After the party ended, Guizi was responsible for driving his sister back to school. Guizian sat in the front passenger seat and turned on the car's headlight. She happily flipped through her rewards of the day. Yang and Murphy's autographs, as well as a photo of her and Shishi together. Ahem Yin. Guizi had not called his sister this way for a long time. Usually when he called her by her name, he would angrily call her by her name. Now, even he felt that it was mushy. However, Guizi had no choice but to soften his tone. After all, he had a favor to ask of her. Yin, I want to talk to you about something. Guazian grinned and looked at the replies in the class group. She said casually, "What is it? Your girlfriend?" G. Chapter 923. Guazi was still thinking about how to tell his sister about this and ask for her help, when Guazian suddenly threw out the trump card, which scared him so much that he slammed on the brakes. Luckily, Guazi drove his sister back to school, and there were not many cars on this road, so his sudden slamming on the brakes didn't cause a rear-end collision. Both the car and the people were fine, but Guazian's hand trembled, and the phone fell to the ground. Guazian was relatively calm. She bent down to pick up the phone under Guazi's panicked gaze. Guazi forgot to drive. He stared at Guazian with wide eyes, and kept turning his head to look at her. That's right. She was chubby and had a round face. She had nothing to do with being pretty or graceful. This girl was his sister, but she wasn't a famous detective. She didn't have a familiar background music with her. How did you know? Guazi looked at Guazian for a while, and finally couldn't help but ask. There were no cars coming and going, but he couldn't stop in the middle of the road for too long. After Guazi asked, he slowly started the car. However, he drove very slowly. His mind was in a mess as he waited for his sister's reply. I can tell. Guazian snorted softly and said proudly. It's very obvious, okay? Look, Dad invited Yang to dinner. It's reasonable that he brought his family, but why did he bring your agent? I didn't even see Sister Yang Huan. Yang Huan had something to do. And Ding Xiang came with Sister Xiaowan, Guazi said hesitantly. There's something else. I found that tonight, you were all praising Ding Xiang intentionally or unintentionally, Guazian said. It's so unusual. There must be something wrong. You should call her Sister Ding Xiang. Guazi felt awkward and said weakly. There's something else that's unusual. That is, you actually lost weight. I thought it was very strange before. How did you succeed in losing weight? Guazian curled her lips and said, So you have a girlfriend? Guazi was a little annoyed. He raised his hand and wanted to pat the steering wheel, but in the end he put it down and asked unwillingly, Is it really that obvious? Dad and Mom noticed it too? He felt that everyone had cooperated well today, and there was no possibility of them being exposed. Mom and Dad didn't notice it. Only your clever and quick-witted sister noticed it. Guazian chuckled. Was that really the case? If Guazian was really that smart, she probably wouldn't be at the bottom of the list, and Tan Huijian wouldn't use Guazi's achievements to beat her up every time her results were mentioned. Guazian found out that Ding Xiang was Guazi's girlfriend, because when she was chatting with Shishi accidentally let it slip. When they returned to the dinner party, Guazian was stopped by Shishi. After she bragged about her brilliant image in school, she felt that something was wrong because she hadn't finished listening to Yang Yi's conversation. She whispered, Is Ding Xiang's cooking really delicious? She knew that her brother was a foodie and was very picky. She didn't leak the secret at first. She said to Guazian enthusiastically, Sister Ding Xiang's cooking is very delicious. But my papa is even better. Guazian had read all kinds of gossip news and knew that Yang Yi's cooking skills were extraordinary. She was more concerned about another question. She asked Shishi casually, Since Guazi eats so well with Ding Xiang every day, how can he still lose weight? This question stumped Shishi. The little girl tilted her head and thought for a while. She said honestly, I don't know. Then she added, But Papa said that Sister Ding Xiang is Uncle Gua's girlfriend. Mom was also Papa's girlfriend, but before they got married. Shishi just wanted to show off her knowledge in front of her new friend. She didn't know that she had accidentally leaked the secret. She didn't care at all. She treated it as a very small matter, and forgot to tell Yang Yi. No matter what, Cece's leak of the secret made Guazian's thoughts suddenly clear up. From the conclusion, Guazian suddenly found a lot of suspicious points that she had missed before. This was also the reason why she showed off in front of Guazi just now. But then again, why didn't she tell him about this discovery? Why didn't she open the lid and say it until Guazi drove her back? Because there was no famous detective Koyen in this world, but there was the big profiteer Guazian. Even if Guazi didn't ask Guazian for help, Guazian was probably going to mention it to Guazi soon. How smart was Guazi? After he calmed down, he quickly figured out the key point. Hey Guazian, you won't tell mom and dad, will you? A signed album by Chunijia. I'm not familiar with Chunijia. I haven't seen him for a long time. Okay, I'll think of a way for you. Guazi gritted his teeth. You went through so much trouble today and even asked Yang Yi and Murphy to help. Didn't you just want mom and dad to get to know Sister Ding Xiang? Guazian called Sister Ding Xiang honestly. Maybe she thought that this sister, who had left a good impression on her, might become a big gold mine for her. She smiled slyly and said, Don't you want me to help you put in a good word for Sister Ding Xiang in front of mom and dad? Let them have a better impression of Sister Ding Xiang. This was what Guazi wanted to say just now. Yes, what do you want? Guazi paused and said straightforwardly. He suddenly calmed down, because he realized that he was destined to be blackmailed. So he might as well close his eyes and accept it. Oh, I have a dream. Guazian giggled. That is to have a whole set of signed photos of the Extreme Six. I'll give you a set. Guazi was very straightforward. This set is not simple. Guazian explained. First, each of you will have an individual signed photo. Second, the Extreme 3 Essentials and the Extreme 3 Idiots will have their own signed photos. Finally, the 6 of you will have your signed photos taken together. This was called a set. And Guazian had already imagined a scene of many rich and handsome young men waving money and crying for her to sell it to them. Even if it was just one sheep, it was the same as letting 2 sheep go. Guazi was also a bachelor. He said straightforwardly, As long as it's done, I promise you that I'll give you whatever you want. But how can you help me? Don't just talk and do nothing. Guazian patted her chest and said solemnly, Don't worry, everyone in school knows that I, Guazian, have the best reputation. If I say that I can help you, then I won't go back on my words. Chapter 924. Half of the new week had quietly passed, and November was gradually approaching the middle of the month. In the past few days, Yang Yi had not forgotten Shishi's request. He had communicated with Lans Haokai and helped Boss Lan adjust the way he disciplined Lan Xian. Just like Shishi, Lan Xian also enjoyed the incentive mechanism of working hard to earn gold coins. Of course, it also depended on the person. Other than earning gold coins from doing housework and studying, Lan Xian could also use the time she spent exercising to exchange for the corresponding amount of gold coins. Moreover, her gold coins were also very useful. For example, 3 gold coins could be exchanged for the permission to eat at Shishi's house, and 10 gold coins could be exchanged for the chance to have Yang Yi make her any delicacy she wanted. If it was said that exchanging gold coins for the permission to watch television was a necessity, and exchanging gold coins for dolls wasn't attractive to Lan Xian, then exchanging gold coins for delicacies was an important reason why Lan Xian couldn't raise any objections to these harsh requirements. Not only that, but Lan Xian's enthusiasm was completely aroused. Uncle Yang, can I still come to your house today and do my homework with Shishi? In the car back in the evening, Lan Xian asked enthusiastically. Yesterday, because Wu Jingjing had gone out shopping, she had come back rather late, so Lan Xian had stayed at Yang Yi's house to do her homework with Shishi. It had to be said that with the 2 children doing their homework together and encouraging each other, Lan Xian's efficiency was also much higher. Before Yang Yi could reply, Shishi happily danced around and said, Yes, Xian heir, you can come to my house to play again. Yang Yi smiled and said to Lan Xian, Of course you can, but you have to promise uncle that you can't whisper to Shishi when you're doing your homework. If you do, you probably won't be able to finish your homework. Yay, Shishi, I can go to your house to do my homework. Lan Xian didn't even finish listening to Yang Yi's words, and was already cheering. The Lan family was more than happy for Lan Xian to come over to study with Shishi. After Yang Yi sent Lan Xian home, Wu Jingjing instructed a few servants to move Lan Xian's desk out of the Lan house and into the side hall of Yang Yi's house. From the looks of it, she didn't want to leave. Yang Yi didn't care. Mo Fei also invited Wu Jingjing to stay for dinner. Good. Good. Today I want to eat at Xishi's house. Lan Xian, who was standing at the side with her school bag, had very sharp ears. When she heard the key word, she suddenly turned her little head and said happily with her eyes shining. If you want to eat at Xishi's house, then you have to take out 3 gold coins. Wu Jingjing was impartial. She stretched out her right hand and said, no, I'm with my mother. Xishi's mother is treating us to dinner. We don't have to spend money. When Lan Xian heard that she wanted her precious gold coins, she suddenly became anxious and argued at the top of her voice. Xishi's mother is treating me to dinner, not you. Wu Jingjing shrugged her shoulders. For the sake of her daughter's grades and health, she didn't know how many times she and Lan Zhoukai played bad cop. At this moment, she didn't want to leave any room for Lan Xian to be lazy. If you have 3 gold coins, of course, you can stay for dinner. But if you don't, then you have to go back and eat the food cooked by Grandma Wu. Lan Xian's small mouth immediately pouted. She could almost hang an oil bottle on it. I don't have 3 gold coins. I only have 1. Murphy, who had been quietly observing the situation, finally couldn't help but ask. Only 1? When Auntie gave you and Xishi the gold coins yesterday, didn't you say that there was 1 more? Then there should be 2. Adding up the 1 you used to finish your homework today, you should have 3 gold coins. Wu Jingjing laughed and said, when she went back last night, she couldn't help watching TV. If it weren't for the fact that she had to go to bed, she probably wouldn't have been able to keep the remaining gold coin. Lan Xian didn't want to exercise, so she could only rely on doing homework to earn the subsistence allowance. She thought that as long as she didn't watch TV, she could earn 3 days of subsistence allowance and go to Xishi's house for dinner. Who knew that she still couldn't resist the temptation last night? You all don't want me to come to Xishi's house for dinner? Lan Xian said dejectedly. I don't even have 3 gold coins, boo-hoo. Lan Xian even had a sobbing tone, but the little girl didn't cry. She just rubbed her eyes with her hands and quietly observed through the gaps between her fingers, trying to find a trace of concession on the adults' faces. My big Xian heir is so cute. She should pity me, right? However, she didn't. Wu Jingjing was too familiar with Lan Xian's 3 axes. She even pulled Murphy and said with a smile, don't mind her. If she can't finish her homework, she won't have any gold coins today. If she doesn't want to exercise, she probably won't be able to save 3 gold coins in her lifetime. However, the adults didn't pity Lan Xian. She cared about her little friend. Cece, who had run upstairs at some point in time, ran down while hugging her little treasure chest. Xian, why don't I lend you 2 gold coins? When you have money, you can return them to me. Xishi's concern made the somewhat desperate Lan Xian feel as if she saw an oasis in the desert. She was overjoyed. She removed the small hands that were covering her face and looked at Xishi with bright eyes. Really? Xishi, do you want to lend me your gold coins? Yes. Xishi nodded her small head and opened her little treasure chest. When the treasure chest was opened, there was a layer of shiny gold coins inside. Lan Xian was immediately dazzled by the sight. Wow, so many gold coins. Lan Xian's eyes almost popped out. She looked at it enviously, as if she saw pieces of floating cake. She really worked hard to earn gold coins. The little girl wasn't like Lan Xian, who tried to live off the subsistence allowance in exchange for opportunities to enjoy life. In addition to the gold coins she saved from doing her homework, she also worked hard to find opportunities to help her father do the housework and help her mother change Tong Tong's clothes. After doing a lot of things, after deducting the money that she spent on watching TV, she finally saved up a lot of gold coins. She wasn't a miser. She was willing to spend money. She spent some of it on watching TV. She also planned to wait until the weekend when she could go shopping. Then she would cross off the rest and buy the doll she wanted. Of course, for gold coins wasn't a lot. It was only enough to put 1 layer in Xishi's little treasure chest. However, for Lan Xian, who had never saved up 3 gold coins, this was definitely a huge sum of money. How could she not feel envious? Look, Xishi is so hardworking. She also works other jobs, But you don't want to use exercise to earn gold coins. Now you want to eat at Xishi's house, but you don't have any gold coins, right? Wu Jingjing took the opportunity to lecture Lan Xian. But Xishi said that she wanted to lend me money. Lan Xian blinked. At this moment, she wasn't anxious and said calmly. It seemed that Lan Xian had found a gold mine that could be mined. Chapter 925. She even wanted to borrow Xishi's gold coins? How could she do that? When Wu Jingjing heard this, she vetoed loudly. No, if you borrow Xishi's gold coins, then in the future, all the money that Xishi worked so hard to earn will be given to you, won't it? Lan Xian looked at the gold coins in Xishi's small treasure chest eagerly, and her hand was reluctant to take it back. When she heard her mother's words, a trace of anxiety appeared on her calm little face. But it was Xishi who wanted to lend it to me. I want to eat at Xishi's house. Xishi looked left and right, scratching her head, not knowing what to say. What's the matter? Yang Yi happened to come over from the side. When he saw that Lan Xian and her mother seemed to be in conflict, he asked. When Murphy told him the cause and effect of the matter, he smiled and said, "This matter is very simple. It's easy. Xian, it's not impossible for you to borrow gold coins from Xisi." A glimmer of hope rose in Lan Xian's heart again, and she looked at Yang Yi expectantly. Wu Jingjing also nodded at this time, and let Yang Yi handle this matter. When it came to educating children, Yang Yi and Murphy seemed to be more patient and resourceful than her. What are we advocating? Through your own efforts, you can get the things you want, food and happiness you want. Yang Yi said, "It's okay to borrow money, but in order not to make you rely too much on borrowing money from Xisi, or in the future, when Xisi borrows money from you, she will forget that she still needs to work hard to earn money. You have to praise your mother for this. In order to prevent this from happening, we have to make a pact before you can borrow gold coins from Xishi." "What pact?" Xishi asked curiously. Lan Xian nodded vigorously, as if she only wanted to be allowed. "Hurry up, Xianer still wanted to eat a big meal." "That's right, there are 3 requirements. First, you can't lend more than 1 gold coin in a day, that is to say you can only borrow 1 gold coin at a time," Yang Yi said. Lan Xian pouted her small mouth again. But doesn't that mean I can't eat at your house?" "Why not?" Yang Yi was a little confused. He didn't know that Xishi said that she wanted to lend 2 gold coins to Lan Xian, which misled Lan. But it didn't matter. Yang Yi now Lan Xian. "You already have 1 gold coin, right?" Lan Xian nodded. "Then before you eat, you have to do your homework seriously. Can you earn a 2nd gold coin with Xishi?" Yang Yi said with a smile. "With 2 gold coins, you can borrow 1 from Xishi, right?" "That's right." Xisi immediately reacted and nodded repeatedly. Lan Xian was a little slower. She counted with her little fingers for a while, and then nodded. "Well, the first requirement is no problem. Let's move on to the 2nd requirement. The borrowed gold coins must be returned on the same day," Yang Yi said gently. "This is also because I am worried that you will forget to return the gold coins if you delay for too long." Lan Xian raised her small head in surprise and asked, But how can I have the money to return to Xishi?" Lan Xian, who only wanted to eat the minimum wage, could only rely on doing homework to earn that 1 gold coin a day. Xishi, who was at the side, blinked her eyes. At this moment, the little girl was also thinking. She felt that it was too stingy to chase others for a gold coin. What's more, this was her little friend, her best friend. "Papa, how about, you don't need Xianer to return it?" "I don't care, I still have 3 gold coins, hee. I can ask Papa for a doll." Xishi poked the gold coins in her small treasure chest with her little finger, and actually showed a happy expression. Hearing this, Lan Xian felt that she was the happiest person in the world. She was overjoyed, turned around and hugged Xishi, and happily said, "Xishi, I like you the most. In the future, if you borrow money from me, I won't ask you to return it." In fact, the saleswoman was also a very generous person, which could be seen from her performance in kindergarten before. At that time, Lan Xian often called Xishi and Chen Shiyin to share their pocket money with Yang Luoqi and Nan Jiaoyu. who didn't have pocket money. For example, in this way, they could take a plane together to go abroad to play with Lu Weisha. Yang Yi was worried about this problem, and he also had a purpose for asking Lan Xian to repay the debt on the same day. That won't do. Our third and last request is that if you return what you borrow, it won't be difficult to borrow again. Yang Yi decisively blocked all the loopholes that Lan Xian wanted to be lazy. Shishi, you can't indulge Xian heir, it will make her develop a bad habit. Before Lan Xian felt sad, Yang Yi smiled and gave Lan Xian an idea. Xian heir, in fact, you are fully capable of returning the gold coin to Shishi tonight. If you want to go for a walk after dinner, you can follow Uncle Yang and practice the martial arts that Shishi practices every morning. After practicing for an hour, you can repay the gold coin. After practicing for 2 hours, you can still have 1 gold coin left after you repay Shishi's debt. This was also Yang Yi's main purpose. He wanted to use this opportunity to encourage Lan Xian, who had been unwilling to practice, to be willing to exchange her practice for gold coins. Lan Xian hesitated. On one hand, she was looking forward to the delicious food, and on the other hand, she felt that it was hard to choose. Shishi envied. Wow, Xian heir, you can earn gold coins like this. My papa said that I don't have any gold coins for practicing. After struggling for a while, the desire for delicious food prevailed. Lan Xian hesitated for a moment, and finally nodded her little head and said, well then I will practice martial arts to repay Shishi. Yang Yi smiled. Before he could encourage Lan Xian, Shishi excitedly held her small treasure chest and jumped up and down, saying happily, Xian heir then you can eat at my house. Lan Xian also smiled happily at Shishi, and the 2 girls jumped up and down. However, motivated by the delicious food, Lan Xian did not forget the business. She asked Shishi for a gold coin, and carefully put it together with the gold coins hidden in her school bag. Then she turned her head and called Shishi. Shishi, let's do our homework quickly. It's time to eat. The 2 girls excitedly sat in front of their small desks, and opened their textbooks and workbooks. Yang Yi and the others stood on the side and watched for a while with gratification. Wu Jingjing could not help but sigh with emotion. Yang Yi, you have a way to make them willing to study and practice. Yang Yi smiled and explained in a low voice. Actually, sometimes we don't have to rush to say no to children. Most things, under certain conditions, can still play a positive role. Like borrowing money and eating, don't rush to deny. We need to remember that the main purpose of the whole system is not to stop children from doing something, but to encourage them to do something. As long as we can achieve our main purpose, then these small problems can be solved flexibly. After Yang Yi finished speaking, he went back to the kitchen to cook. Soon, the fragrance of the dishes floated to the side hall. Lan Xian, who was sitting in front of the desk, was encouraged by the smell of the results, and did her homework very seriously. It had to be said that Lan Xian was also a very smart child. Previously, she did not like to do homework, and her grades slipped because she was too lazy. Now she did her homework without any carelessness, and she did not need to copy Shishi's homework. How could a first-grade homework be difficult for Lan Xian? You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.